The baby phoenix's first cry. 6. Princess Beiyu is already very strong. With just her left hand, she was able to effortlessly defeat Lin Zichen, who is about to enter the Gold Warrior stage. This kind of strength is too strong and too frightening. The people from the government minister's residence could only shrink their necks and didn't dare to speak. This is because people around them were giving them gazes full of contempt and disdain. Government Minister Lin also felt that he had lost face. He turned around to look at Nguogong. Nguogong's expression was extremely ugly. In today's battle, the government minister's residence has lost 2 geniuses, which is a small matter. The most important matter is that Lin Wenyi is the future Jin Wangfei. Her identity is different from regular people. Yet by doing these kinds of things, she not only ruined the reputation of the government minister's residence, but she has also ruined Prince Jin's reputation. Everything that they had planned before is now useless. This Lin Wenyi definitely cannot become Jin Wangfei. They now have to restart all their plans, so how could Nguogong not be angry? In addition to that, the girl he dislikes the most had unexpectedly become the center of attention. This Huang Beiyu's skills are very strong. She'll be difficult to deal with. Before, they had sent out people to kill her. Yet there is still no news from them. He had originally thought that they had made a mistake, so they fled. But now, it seems that those people have already been dealt with by Huang Beiyu. With her strength, the people he had sent are no match for her. Nguogong snorted and returned to his residence. Government Minister Lin also had slowly walked up and ordered people to help Lin Zichen return home. Huang Beiyu raised an eyebrow and lightly said, "So Lin Gongzi is just going to leave like this? Otherwise, what else do you want to do?" Lin Wenjun said as he sucked in his nose. Their government minister's residence is done for. Nguogong must have been disappointed with the government minister's residence. "Kneel down and apologize to me. That's what you agreed to." Huang Beiyu's voice was clear and cold, but her words are powerful and resonating. The people around them immediately nodded. Lin Zichen did say before the contest that if Huang Beiyu defeats him, then he'll get on his knees and apologize to her. Thousands of ears had heard him say that. The Crown Prince, Principal Kang He, and Xiao Yara Wang could all testify. Even if Lin Zichen want to renege on his promise, he's unable to. "Princess Beiyu, my older brother is already like this. Don't bully others to the extreme," Lin Wenjun said as she bit her lips. Huang Beiyu sneered, "That's what he did to himself. Does he want to renege on his promise just like this? Is that what an expert would do? As an expert, if they dare say it, then they must do it. That is an absolute must, especially in front of so many people. If he wants to refuse to acknowledge his promise, then in the future, no one will respect him." Lin Wenjun looked at Government Minister Lin. The government minister was furious as he said in a low voice, "Zicheng, go." During this situation, everyone's on Huang Beiyu's side. This girl is indeed a vicious and cunning person. Originally, her overbearing manner is very easily disliked. However, she had brought up how an expert would act and compared it to Lin Zicheng. Due to this, if he doesn't apologize, then he'll lose the heart and trust of other people. Hence, he could only kneel down and apologize. What a scheme. In other words, she's sinister and cunning. She's able to kill people without using any weapons. Lin Zichen slightly nodded his head. He let Government Minister Lin and Lin Wenjun release their hold of him. His face was covered in blood, making him appear strange and sinister. He slowly kneeled down and pressed his hands on the ground and furiously grabbed the soil. Lin Zichen's voice was cold and hard as he said, "It's my fault that I don't have any eyes and had wrongly accused Princess Beiyu. So I apologize and hope that Princess Beiyu will forgive me." The corner of Huang Beiyu's mouth curved up. She gracefully jumped down from the wooden pillar and walked to the side. She indifferently threw these words down, "You can stand up." The baby phoenix's first cry. 7. There were visible blood markings on the ground from where Lin Zicheng had grabbed the soil. He raised his head and stared at Huang Beiyu's back. His eyes revealed bitter resentment and hatred. "Loathsome girl. I hope you will remember the shame that you had brought me today, because I will return it back to you 100-fold. Congratulations, Princess Beiyu. Now, no one would dare to call you a waste in the future, Luoluo said loudly. After Luoluo congratulated her, the people around them followed suit. They also congratulated her and expressed their respect towards her. To a strong person, all this glory and recognition is natural. Principal Kang he came up to her and said, "When Princess Beiyu entered the school, you didn't take the assessment. In a few days, I will arrange an assessment for you. If you pass the assessment, then you can study martial arts." Wow! Princess Beiyu is also a martial warrior now. What's more, she directly jumped into the Silver Warrior stage. Maybe after the assessment, her level might be even higher. When she had fought Lin Zicheng earlier, she didn't use all of her strength. She's a genius. A 12-year-old that is at Silver Warrior stage or Gold Warrior stage is definitely the youngest martial expert in Nanyi country's history. She's worthy to be called Princess Zhong's daughter. She's a young genius. Everyone was praising Huang Beiyu for her talent. This made Huang Beiyu, who is usually cold and indifferent, a little embarrassed. Xiao Yarrow Wang and Feng Lian Yi stood behind the crowd. They laughed as they looked at the scene in front of them. Xiao Yarrow Wang slowly shook his fan as he slightly squinted his eyes. A flash of melancholy flashed by his eyes. "Yu is a genius," he said softly. "If Princess Zhong knows, then she probably wouldn't have died so uneasily. The dead has already departed. Wang Ye, don't worry about the dead." Feng Lianyi raised his head, his light purple eyes showed no ripples in them. "Princess Beiyu is very intelligent. I'm sure her achievements in the future won't be much lower than Princess Zhong's." "That's right. I will protect Yu in the future until she grows up. Huang Beiyu is only 12 years old this year. Today, she has shown her ability for the first time. In the future, there'll be many people who want to harm her. Although she is strong, she's still a child. In order to fulfill his promise to Princess Zhong, he will definitely protect her." In the faraway 7th tower, a noble and cold figure stood beside the half-opened window. The gentle wind slightly blew across his dark hair. His pair of eyes were abnormally cold. But within that cold and unfeeling eyes, there is a trace of light. "Huang Beiyu. Beiyu," his cold and quiet voice dissipated with the wind. "The stronger you get, the more I want you." The person he chooses would definitely not be wrong. The honorable spirit closes the window. His figure is like fog, dissipating in the darkness. Okay. Princess Beiyu and Lin Wenyi's competition has already ended. The winner is Princess Beiyu. When Principal Kang he saw the situation has slowly settled down, he pressed his hands down and waited for everyone to become quiet. After that, he declared the results of the competition. A 12-year-old Silver Warrior stage expert has won. Now no one will think it's an accident anymore. Thinking back, the competition between Princess Beiyu and Lin Wenyi was really wonderful. Every move she had displayed were moves that an expert would make. If it's all based on luck, how can she be so confident and at ease? Princess Beiyu is really talented. Lin Wenyi and Lin Zicheng are not her opponents at all. The baby phoenix's first cry, 8. She had lost to Princess Beiyu even after she had exhausted all her strength. She's of no use. Therefore, everyone agrees on the result of the competition. Okay. Let's continue the competition, Principal Kang he said. His voice was brimming with prestige and dignity. The audience returned to their seats and continued to watch the competitions. After Huang Beiyu bandaged her hand and shoulder, she turned to look at the competition between Princess Yingyi and an expert from the martial arts college. With just a glance, Huang Beiyu knew that the expert from the martial arts academy isn't Princess Yingyi's match. If Princess Yingyi went to the martial arts college instead of the Imperial College, she'll still be a talented expert. Huang Beiyu didn't watch the match between them because she already knew the result. She slowly walked towards the judge's seat. A guard came over and respectfully bowed to her. The deep respect and admiration on his face were obvious. Princess Beiyu, is something the matter? Before, everyone knew that she's a waste. But now, she had suddenly become a talented expert. When people think of this, they were inspired by her. How much effort had she put in and how much difficulties had she faced? Therefore, people's respect for Huang Beiyu is much deeper than their respect for a regular expert. I want to talk to Principal Kang He. I must inconvenience you to ask him. Thank you. No problem. The guard immediately became excited when he heard such courteous words. He would have never thought that such a talented expert would be so polite. No wonder she is the daughter that Princess Zhong has raised. This made people respect her from the bottom of their heart. The guard walked to the judge's seat and whispered a few words into Principal Kang He's ear. Principal Kang He got up. Like an immortal, he walked over to Huang Beiyu with a kind smile. Princess Beiyu, is something the matter? Huang Beiyu greeted Principal Kang He and said, Principal, I really like to stay in the Imperial College and learn about poetry and etiquette. This is also what my mother wants for me. I want to ask Principal Kang He not to transfer me to the Martial Arts College. She really likes how quiet and peaceful the Imperial College is. What's more, the classes that she's taking there isn't all useless. Although one's martial arts would increase significantly if they enter the Martial Arts College, Huang Beiyu still hasn't been able to condense any vitality up till now. The things that are taught in the Martial Arts College isn't suitable for her. If she transfers there, it'll just be wasting her time. After listening to her words, Principal Kang He was slightly surprised. This was because he had never encountered any students that didn't want to enter the Martial Arts College. If a regular student had heard that he or she could enter the Martial Arts College, he or she would be extremely excited. However, he respects a student's wishes. If Princess is sure about this, then I'll respect your decision. Thank you, Principal. Huang Beiyu bowed towards him. When she raised her head, her gaze was at the faraway 7th tower. She asked, Principal, I want to as if the students from the Imperial College would be able to enter the 7th tower to look at ancient books and scrolls. Principal Kang He kindly smiled. Naturally, they can. But the books that the students in the Imperial College would study are located in the library in the Imperial College. The ancient books and scrolls in the 7th tower are too profound. Thus, the students from the Imperial College wouldn't enter. However, there isn't a rule that says that they can't. I understand. Thank you, Principal Kang He, Huang Beiyu quickly said. The baby phoenix's first cry, 9. Principal Kang He looked at her deeply and said in a sincere and earnest voice, Princess Beiyu, you are very talented. If you concentrate on cultivating, then in the future you'll definitely become very strong. I think you should reconsider about transferring to the Martial Arts Academy. Although Huang Beiyu doesn't think the same way as Principal Kang He, she told him she'll consider it. Principal Kang He nodded his head and went back to sit on the judge's seat. At the end of the battle between Princess Ying Yi and the expert from the Martial Arts College, Princess Ying Yi had won without a surprise. The expert that was defeated by Princess Ying Yi and had willingly admitted defeat. The two battles between the Imperial College and the Martial Arts College were both won by the Imperial College. This made the talented experts from the Martial Arts College lose face. Teacher Lei, who was on the judge's seat, was fuming with rage while Teacher Guo was stroking his chin and laughing heartily. This year, the students from the Imperial College have given him so much face. Princess Ying Yi walked back to her seat with her sword in hand. But when she saw Huang Beiyu, she smiled as she pulled Beiyu's hand forward. There was a lot of people before, so I didn't go up to congratulate you. My royal brother and I are very happy for you. Thank you, Princess. Thank you, Crown Prince. Princess Ying Yi smiled and said, Why are you thanking us? We are a family. What's more, you have destroyed the arrogance that Ngwa Gong's residents and the government minister's residents always have. These two old guys support Prince Jin, so they harbor bad intentions towards my royal brother. They need a good beating. For a long time, Government Minister Lin and Ngwa Gong are jackals of the same tribe. In addition to Government Minister Lin and Ngwa Gong's side, there is also Prime Minister Qi. In Nanyi country, these two groups both harbor ill intentions towards the Crown Prince. However, a few days ago, Huang Beiyu had killed Xue Meng. Shortly after that, Ngwa Gong's treasure was stolen. In a short time, people from Ngwa Gong's residence can't be as arrogant as they were before. Presently, the two talented geniuses from government minister's residence have been crippled by Huang Beiyu. Now, they have been beaten to the point where they can't lift their heads up. After hearing this, the experts who have been relying on the government minister's residence would probably break their ties with the government minister's residence. It doesn't matter which residence they would join. As long as they're able to take away the arrogance from Angua Gong's residence and the government minister's residence, then it's for the best. Even though this was unintentionally caused by Huang Beiyu, Princess Yingyi was very happy. Princess Yingyi took Huang Beiyu to sit at where the royal family would sit. However, the Xiao family wasn't seated far from where the royal family would sit. This is because by using Princess Zhong's name, they are able to be seated close to where the royal family is. As Huang Beiyu walked past them, the group of people sitting there started to become nervous. Xiao Zhongqi and Xiao Yun immediately put up their guard as they looked at her. After so many years of bullying her, they don't believe that she won't come and seek revenge. However, unexpectedly, Huang Beiyu didn't even spare a glance at them. She walked straight up to the crown prince and was about to bow when Zhongyi raised his hand and said, "No need to be too polite." Princess Yingyi and Huang Beiyu sat together. Princess Yingyi said, "Royal brother, how was Beiyu's performance before? Isn't she very strong?" Zhongyi's complexion wasn't too good. His face was slightly pale. But after hearing Princess Yingyi's words, the corners of his mouth slightly raised. Zhongyi rarely say words of praise to others, but he said, "Very good." "Royal brother rarely praises others," Princess Yingyi mischievously said. Huang Beiyu looked at Zhongyi's face and was secretly worried. Why is his complexion still so pale? It seems that he still wasn't able to detoxify the poison. Was 100 poison pill not effective at all? The baby phoenix's first cry. 10. Is the crown prince's body not well? Huang Beiyu couldn't help but ask. Princess Yingyi knows that the crown prince has a cold and detached temperament and doesn't like to talk to others. Hence, she spoke first and said, "It has been chilly these past few days, so my brother caught a cold. His body is somewhat unwell." Huang Beiyu looked at Princess Yingyi. Princess Yingyi's eyes were clear and bright. It doesn't seem like she's lying. Huang Beiyu was puzzled. Could it be that he didn't tell Princess Yingyi? Didn't he tell her that he had told the emperor and that he also went to Xiao Yarrow Wang to look for solutions? Could it be that he said all those just to comfort her? When Huang Beiyu thought up to hear, her mood became heavy. "Princess Beiyu, who's your master?" Zhongyi's voice faintly sounded. "My master doesn't like it when I mention him in front of others. I hope you understand. Her master is a hermit and passes his day like an immortal. The more quiet and secluded a place is, the more her master likes it. Hence, people from the outside rarely heard about him. However, the disciples that he teaches would all become one of the very best experts in the world." Zhongyi nodded his head, but he secretly thought in his heart, she must be Shi Tian's disciple. That night, Shi Tian had told him that she had come here to repay Princess Zhong. But Princess Zhong has already died. Therefore, she could only repay her debt through Princess Beiyu. Huang Beiyu has been rumored to be a waste and her physique was special, so she couldn't condense any vitality. However, in the past few days, she was able to shock numerous people with her talent. How can someone become so powerful in such a short time? It would be impossible unless they receive the guidance of an expert. In order to repay the grace of Princess Zhong, Shi Tian would definitely do her best to teach Princess Beiyu. She's a confident and light person. Even if she had taken Princess Beiyu as a disciple, she still isn't fond of showing off. Your teacher must be very powerful to be able to have an apprentice like you. Zhongyi didn't press the issue any further. Since Shi Tian had told Princess Beiyu not to tell others, then he shouldn't make things difficult for her. Since little, Huang Beiyu has always admired and respected her teacher. So whenever she hears others praising her teacher, she's especially happy. Yes, my master is a great person. Although he is young, he is very powerful. When Zhongyi heard that her teacher is young, he's even more certain that it's Shi Tian. Within the many experts in Nanyi country, an expert who is young and powerful besides him, there is only Shi Tian. When Zhongyi heard how Huang Beiyu revere her teacher, he is also very happy. There is no need to talk about Shi Tian's character. The disciples that she teaches would naturally be pretty good. A soft yet hard-to-detect smile flashed by his handsome face. From his space ring, he took out a bottle of jade liquid for healing and gave it to her. He said, "Carefully take care of your wounds." Huang Beiyu blankly stared at the bottle. Last time, Zhongyi also gave her this thing. However, at that time, she was Shi Tian. Because she was a 9-star summoner, that's why he was very liberal when giving it to her. That time, Yang had said that the jade liquid is very precious and hard to get. Even if you have money, it would still be difficult to get. At the current stage she is at, there isn't really a reason for him to give her such a precious medicine, right? Could it be that he's nice to everyone? Huang Beiyu couldn't help but be a little depressed. If she knows that Zhongyi is thinking right now, she would feel speechless. How could she become her own teacher? Princess Yingyi enviously looked at her. Her brother has never been so generous towards her. Just as she's about to say something, someone from the Xiao family walked over. The baby phoenix's first cry. 11. The person that had come over was Xiao Yun. Because the crown prince and princess Yingyi are here, she didn't dare to be arrogant. She respectfully walked over and gave them a bow. Princess Yingyi coldly raised her head to look at her. Although Princess Yingyi didn't say anything, her eyes were silently inquiring why Xiao Yun is here. Xiao Yun lowered her head, not daring to lift her head to look at them. She respectfully said, replying to the crown prince and princess, "My grandfather had asked me to come here to invite Princess Beiyu over to talk. The people from the Xiao family doesn't have many achievements. Although Xiao Yuan Cheng is the emperor's brother-in-law, he doesn't hold much power in the royal court. But on the contrary, Xiao Qi Yuan has become an 8-star summoner and is highly regarded by the emperor. People who are strong are respected by the people." Zhongyi slightly nodded his head and said, "Ask Princess Beiyu if she wants to." "Thank you, Your Highness." In front of the youngest genius of the Cart continent, Xiao Yun was just a mere 3-star summoner. In front of him, she's weak and insignificant. The pressure emitted by the crown prince was strong to the point where she could hardly breathe. Xiao Yun was somewhat discouraged. If only she could raise 1 or 2 levels up, then she would be able to lift her head in front of the crown prince. "Princess, would you like to come?" Xiao Yun said in a low voice. In Xiao Yun's heart, she's extremely angry that she has to address Huang Beiyu with such respect. So what if she's strong? What is the use of that waste even if she has changed her fortune? She will die sooner or later. Huang Beiyu glanced at her and slowly stood up. She said, "Let's go." Just as she said that, she gave the crown prince and princess Yingyi a bow and left. Xiao Qi Yuan wasn't seated in the audience seats, he was in the forest where the 7th tower is located. The forest was quiet, everyone had gone to see the competition, so no one is here. Huang Beiyu walked behind Xiao Yun. As she walked, she observed their surroundings to make sure that no one was hiding in ambush. It's not that she's overly suspicious. It's because, after so many years, her heart has become completely cold towards the people from the Xiao family. So what if they're blood-related? Her father, Xiao Yuan Cheng, couldn't wait for her to die. That Xiao Qi Yuan has regarded her as a disgrace that has destroyed the Xiao family's reputation the moment she was born. It's truly hilarious. Xiao Yuan Cheng had willingly married Princess Zhong. At that time, Huang Beiyu wasn't even born, so how does it concern her? Why does he hate her? They were surrounded by lush green trees which were illuminated by the shining sun. The spots where sunlight couldn't reach the scattered leaves on the ground gave off a cold feeling. What is that Xiao Qi Yuan doing? Why does he want to meet his granddaughter here? Just as Huang Beiyu was thinking that, Xiao Yun's hand flashed. The ice feather appeared in her hand and she turned around, aiming the ice feather at Huang Beiyu. The ice feather emitted cold air, freezing the already cold air in the forest. A cold ray of light flashed by Huang Beiyu's eyes. Huang Beiyu very naturally retreated, lightly and easily dodged Xiao Yun's attack. "Second sister, what are you doing?" Xiao Yun coldly and hatefully glared at her. Because the first attack didn't succeed, she immediately attacks her again. The second attack was faster and fiercer as she aimed once again at Huang Beiyu. At the same time, she screamed, "Snow White Cat, come out." The surrounding temperature decreased once again. A large white cat appeared in the forest. The leaves on the tree started to fall. The cat's eyes look very strange under the sunlight. Counting one's chickens before they are hatched. 1. A meow sounded in the forest, and within that sound, it contains cold air that is rushing towards Huang Beiyu. Has Xiao Yun become crazy? A mere 3-star summoner actually dared to attack her? When she was battling against Lin Zicheng today, did Xiao Yun not see her strength? Otherwise, how could she so brainlessly dare to challenge her? Unless someone has instructed her to do so in order to set up a trap. Who is it? What's their purpose? Since Xiao Qi Yuan was the one to ask Xiao Yun to bring her, then it must be that old fox. What does he want to do? Does he want to see her true strength? Don't make her laugh. Does he want to see her true strength by sending Xiao Yun, who is just a mere 3-star summoner? Huang Beiyu twirled backward, arriving behind a tree. She swept her eyes across the forest. Xiao Qi Yuan must be hiding somewhere in order to see her skills. He wants to see her skills. How could it be that easy? She picked up a stone from the ground and held it in her hand. Huang Beiyu used the trees to block the oncoming attacks from Xiao Yun. No matter how Xiao Yun attacked her, he won't appear. The Snow White Cat has ice attributes. Although the cat is very docile, however, when it's in a battle, it's somewhat violent. The cat kept screaming and screaming, wanting to break the tree with its large body. Huang Beiyu secretly poured vitality into the stone that is in her hand and threw it in the direction of the Snow White Cat's eye. Suddenly, a miserable cry resounded throughout the forest. When it comes to shooting games, even her master had praised her for her skills. That's why Huang Beiyu was able to shoot down Lin Wenyi's arrow while riding the unbalanced horse today. When Xiao Yun saw fresh blood flowing from her beloved spirit beast's eye, she was immediately distressed and angry. Huang Beiyu, stop hiding and come out to fight me. Huang Beiyu coldly laughed. You want to fight me? Do you even have the ability? She didn't reply as another rock flew out of her hand. This time, the rock didn't hit the Snow White Cat, but Xiao Yun. Ah! Xiao Yun miserably screamed. She laid on the back of the Snow White Cat while covering her injured ear with her hand. If she hadn't dodged quickly, the rock would have hit her eye. That wretched Huang Beiyu, where is she hiding? Xiao Yun swept her gaze across her surrounding. She was surrounded by tall and dense trees. Every time Huang Beiyu threw a stone out, she would use some weird martial arts to shift herself behind another tree. This made it impossible for people to sense where she is. Stone after stones were ruthlessly and accurately thrown at Xiao Yun. Xiao Yun hid behind the Snow White Cat, preventing herself from getting injured. However, the Snow White Cat kept letting out blood-curdling screams as the rocks hit it. They were out in the open while Huang Beiyu is hidden. This kind of situation was very unfavorable to them. In addition to that, Xiao Yun was only a 3-star summoner. She can't even be compared to one of Huang Beiyu's finger. How could she get the upper hand? The enraged Snow White Cat was violently charging around the forest. It wants to catch the person that is attacking them and tear that person into pieces. Yun, an old voice suddenly sounded. Following that, a leopard's roar could be heard. A burst of hot wind swept over them, accompanying the roar, making the trees surrounding them crash. This level of fire attribute was very fierce. The Snow White Cat's violent roar before was incomparable to this. Grandpa. When Xiao Yun heard that voice, she was immediately happy. Now, she'll have someone to rely on. Counting one's chickens before they are hatched. 2. Grandpa is about to teach her a lesson. She can no longer act arrogant. A black leopard with a fire burning on each of its feet stepped out from the depth of the forest. A majestic white-haired old man sat on the back of the leopard. His eyes were slightly close and he has an imposing demeanor like that of an expert. Xiao Qi Yuan had just broken through the rank of an 8-star summoner. His spirit beast is the blazing leopard, which is a rank 12 spirit beast with the fire attribute. Although the size of the blazing leopard isn't big, its speed and attack power is very amazing. If a regular 9-star summoner meets Xiao Qi Yuan, they'll have to eat a little loss. In the palace banquet before, Sima Guiyang, who is a 9-star summoner, didn't dare to provoke this old fox from the Xiao family. When Xiao Yun saw Xiao Qi Yuan, she jumped down from the back of the snow-white cat. While holding her injured ear with her hand, she walked towards Xiao Qi Yuan. "Grandpa, that girl isn't coming out. I don't know where she is hiding and was plotted against by her. She's so despicable." Xiao Qi Yuan slightly nodded his head and gave her a pill that he took out from his sleeve. He quietly said, "Put the pill in water and then crush it. After that, put it on your wounds and it won't leave a scar." "Thank you, Grandpa." Xiao Yun immediately took the pill. To a girl, their appearance is the most important thing. Even if there's a little blemish on her ear, Xiao Yun won't be able to bear it. "You can go home first, I will take care of the things here." "Yes, Grandpa." Since Xiao Yun was little, she would always obey her grandpa's words. She never dared to defy him. Although she really wants to see how Grandpa will teach Huang Beiyu a lesson, she's not in a hurry. Xiao Yun took the snow-white cat and quickly left the forest. Xiao Qi Yuan rode the blazing leopard and slowly walked forward a few steps. His half-closed eyes opened slightly. An old but majestic voice slowly said, "Huang Beiyu, come out. I thought that lord wasn't going to come, so I was going to leave." Huang Beiyu slowly came out from behind a tree. In her hand, she was tossing up a stone and catching it. Huang Beiyu faintly smiled and raised her head to look at Xiao Qi Yuan. Xiao Qi Yuan said, "You should address me as Grandpa." "Really? I remember when I was a child, the Lord had said that I am not a child of the Xiao family. Hence, I wasn't allowed to address you as Grandpa, unlike my brothers and sisters." A trace of cold light flashed by Huang Beiyu's clear eyes. "That had happened so many years ago, yet you still remember." Xiao Qi Yuan doesn't seem angry, just that the speed of his speech was slower. Beiyu doesn't dare to forget. The humiliation from the past, the worry from today, and the suffering from the future will all not be forgotten. Xiao Qi Yuan raised his head and finally opened his eyes completely. He carefully inspected Huang Beiyu. The little girl is only 12 years old, yet standing there, the noble and cold demeanor that she exudes was the same as Princess Zhong. But the girl in front of him is different from the girl he saw when she was little. Ever since he saw her at the palace banquet, he noticed that she was different. Today, after the competition, he finally confirmed his thoughts. Huang Beiyu wasn't as timid, weak, and incapable as she was when she was little. During today's competition, she is heroic and looked high above others. That imposing manner looked like she was looking down on all expert. After witnessing the strength she used to defeat Lin Zicheng, Xiao Qi Yuan's afraid that her strength is at the level of a gold warrior. At this level, even he has to take her seriously. After all, she's only 12 years old. Beiyu, only people who have strength in the continent are valued by others. In the past, you had the title of trash so naturally, no one would value you. Counting one's chickens before they are hatched. 3. Beiyu, on this continent, only strong people are valued by people. In the past, you carried the title of trash so naturally, no one will value you. But now, it's different. With your current strength, it's enough for the Xiao family to cultivate you. Huang Beiyu slightly tilted her head and frowned. "Cultivate?" Xiao Qi Yuan nodded his head and said, "As long as you tell me who taught you those skills and who your master is, Grandpa promised that the cultivation books and secret books from the Xiao family will be passed on to you." Huang Beiyu raised one of her eyebrows and sneered in her heart. So it's like this, they just want to know who her master is and how she learned those skills. Promising her that he'll pass on the cultivation books is just an excuse to cover his real motive. Xiao Qi Yuan, you really are an old fox. You really know how to calculate your moves. The skill books and secret books from Xiao family, are they as good as my master's? Huang Beiyu's voice was faint as she blinked her big black eyes, like an innocent little girl. Xiao Qi Yuan looked at Huang Beiyu's appearance. He thought, in the end, she's just a little girl who is innocent and not sensible. Her words seemed to be just comparing her master and the Xiao family. The Xiao family is a long-established large clan from the Nanyi country. They had stashed away a lot of cultivation books and secret books. The number of precious devices, pills, and riches are also very significant. Huang Beiyu's master can't be an expert from a big sect. He can only be some high-ranking people who like to stay hidden. These people normally idle like a crane and don't have families. How can the things they have compared to their Xiao family? Xiao Qi Yuan slowly said, "Today you probably saw Lin Zicheng's sword art technique, Raging Flame's violent roar. With good sword arts, your strength will also increase a bit. You are now at the rank of a gold warrior, yet you still don't have any sword arts. Sword arts are skills of people who cultivate martial arts. When one reaches the rank of a high-level warrior, they'll be able to cultivate in sword arts. There are many sword arts in the Cart continent. But the really powerful sword arts are hidden by experts and big families. Huang Bei, you indeed didn't see any sword arts until now. However, what she wants to cultivate isn't the path of martial arts. To her, sword arts aren't really tempting. But she is still interested in the treasures that the Xiao family is hiding. Over the years, the Xiao family has received a lot of benefits from Princess Zhong's residence. Humph. Do you think those benefits are for free? My master hasn't passed me any sword arts, Huang Beiyu faintly said. A hard-to-detect sneer flashed by Xiao Qi Yuan's eyes. Sure enough, her master is just a high-ranking person. Otherwise, he would have already passed her a sword art since she's already at the gold warrior rank. It seems that he doesn't have any good things. I have a high-grade sword art, Flaming Fire Chop. If the vitality in your body is of the fire attribute, then I can let you cultivate this. The vitality of a person comes from their body. The vitality in Huang Beiyu's body has all been absorbed by the Blackwater Forbidden Prison. So she doesn't have any vitality in her body. The vitality she absorbs is all pure vitality that doesn't have any attribute. So as a summoner, she can summon the Ice Swan spirit bird who has an ice attribute. At the same spirit beast that has the fire attribute, she can also suppress. Naturally, the sword technique that is for people with fire attribute, she can also cultivate. Xiao Qi Yuan took out the sword art, Flaming Fire Chop from his storage ring. With a flick of his sleeve, he threw it to her. Huang Beiyu raised her hand and caught it. The sword arts of the fire attribute has fire vitality surrounding it. Counting one's chickens before they are hatched. 4. Huang Beiyu raised her hand and caught it. The sword arts of the fire attribute has fire vitality surrounding it. She opened the book and her eyes swept across the content in the book. You only have the upper volume, 1? Xiao Qi Yuan said, with the ability you have now, you won't be able to cultivate the lower volume. When you almost finish cultivating the upper volume, I will give you the lower volume. If one only possess half of the sword art, they can't cultivate it at all. This Xiao Qi Yuan is clearly regarding her as a stupid child. Huang Beiyu threw back the sword art book and said, "The Lord can keep it to yourself, I don't need it." The expression of Xiao Qi Yuan's face sank as he said, "This Flaming Fire Chop is already a high-grade sword art and yet you still disdain it. So what if it's a high-grade sword art? Even if it's god-grade sword art, with only half of the book, it's useless. Does he think she's a fool? Lord, I can't take a reward if it's not deserved. With such a high-grade sword art, how can I want it? Humph. You just don't want to say who your master, right?" Xiao Qi Yuan coldly snorted. He was clearly angered by her stubborn attitude. Huang Beiyu coldly looked at him and said, "Who my master is, doesn't concern the Lord. Don't forget, Lord has said that I am not a part of the Xiao family." Xiao Qi Yuan was about to explode, but thinking about it, he would lose his prestige if he argues with a 12-year-old girl. Thus, he slowly said, "Huang Beiyu, do you know that there are a lot of experts in the Cart continent? If you walk out of Nanyi country, there is still a bigger world." Huang Beiyu nodded her head, "Of course I know." Xiao Qi Yuan glanced at her and his heart was full of disdain. What can a little girl know? Since you understand, then you should know that no matter how strong an expert is, they can't proclaim themselves to be king. Only by relying on a large and formidable family, would one be able to run amok on this continent. A large and formidable family. Huang Beiyu wrinkled her delicate and pretty eyebrows. Thinking about it seriously, she said, So a large and formidable family like the Bujia family and Bei Yaro country's Yuan family would allow one to run amok in this continent. This kind of family, it's not easy to randomly rely on them. Xiao Qi Yuan almost choked. The Bujia family and the Yuan family is considered one of the best clans in the Cart continent. If the Xiao family is compared to them, then they can't even compare to their farts. Is this little girl intentionally doing this? Xiao Qi Yuan's face was covered with frost as he coldly said, the Bujia family and Yuan family only recognize their own people, they obviously won't rely on external forces or other people. But the other families beside them, they all value expert. Could the Lord be talking about the Xiao family? Huang Beiyu softly smiled. In the younger generation of the Xiao family, eldest brother and second sister are considered top-notch characters. However, they're powerless to defend themselves now. But on the Lord's side, there are a few unknown experts. How can this kind of family allow one to run amok on the Cart continent? Since she had already said up to this, if Xiao Qi Yuan is still unable to understand her ridicule, then he has lived up to this age all for nothing. Thinking back about what she said before, he can't help but become angry. Since the beginning to now, she has been playing with him. Huang Beiyu, do you think that with your current strength, you can be so impudent in front of me? Xiao Qi Yuan screamed in anger. The blazing leopard also let out a low growl. Huang Beiyu coldly looked at him. Her elegant and exquisite small face was full of ridicule. 1. A sword arts book is divided into 2 volumes, the upper volume, the first part, and the lower volume, the second part. In literal Chinese, it's the up volume and down volume. Counting one's chickens before they are hatched. 5. Huang Beiyu coldly looked at him. Her elegant and exquisite small face was full of ridicule. Just a mere 8-star summoner and a rank 12 spirit beast. Do you think I put you in my eyes? Xiao Qi Yuan's white hair suddenly spread around. In a towering rage, he screamed, Huang Beiyu. It's better if the Lord would address me as Princess Beiyu. You have to get used to addressing me this way or else you'll blame this princess for not giving you face when you address me wrongly in front of other people. You're overestimating your abilities. Xiao Qi Yuan's eye socket cracked. He was angered to the point where his face was completely red as he said, Today, this old man will kill you here. Kill me. We don't even know who will be killing who yet. Huang Beiyu coldly licked the corner of her lips. There is no one else in the 7th Tower Forest. If she kills Xiao Qi Yuan here, no one will know. She can also be a little more sinister and blame it on the honorable spirit. Once Xiao Qi Yuan dies, the Xiao family would lose their backbone. When that happens, there'll definitely be an upheaval. When the main family is in an upheaval, Xiao Yuan Cheng will lose his backing. Then he could only obediently allow her to sort him out. Just as she was thinking this, Xiao Qi Yuan already shouted loudly. The blazing leopard violently roared as he stretched the muscles in its body. Its black skin immediately bulged. The blazing leopard exposed its fangs as it stared at her with its copper-colored eyes. Xiao Qi Yuan pointed his old fingers at Huang Beiyu as he shouted, Tear her apart. Huang Beiyu looked at him with disdain. This old man really knows how to dream. Huang Beiyu raised her chin, but before she even started summoning her spirit beast, a red ray of light suddenly swung their way from the depth of the forest. The red ray of light was thin, similar to a whip. The red ray of light hit the blazing leopard's body when it was ferociously running forward. Ayo! The blazing leopard cried miserably. It was flung far away by the force of the whip. Xiao Qi Yuan fell off the back of the blazing leopard. But he was an expert who has cultivated for a long time. His heart was firm. Naturally, it's impossible for him to lose his fighting spirit with just being hit. He immediately stood up and looked around him. Which expert is this? Please show yourself. You want to see me? You aren't worthy, the lazy voice echoed. The voice carried a chilly and high above others' temperament. When people hear it, they can't help but tremble. Huang Beiyu frowned. It's this guy. This old man is just handling my family matters. I want to ask you why you are interfering. Xiao Qi Yuan isn't foolish. When the whip hit the blazing leopard before, he already had faintly felt the powerful imposing manner of that person. That is an expert whose power that has exceeded his many times over. Because of this, he was polite. He didn't dare to be impudent. He is already an 8-star summoner. Even if that expert is like the Crown Prince John Yi, who has a purple flaming unicorn, it would be impossible for the expert to be able to throw the blazing leopard and him so far away with just a whip. So just what rank is this expert? He thought about it and came up with the only possible answer. It must be that this expert has been resting here and was disturbed by him, so that's why the expert had attacked him. These experts are really strong, but they wouldn't kill without reason. Otherwise, that attack would have sent him straight to hell. Family matters. The arrogant voice coldly snorted, "Humph, is my disciple someone you can easily bully?" Disciple? Xiao Qi Yuan opened his mouth in shock. It seemed as if he had swallowed an egg. His expression looked like he had eaten feces, yet he is forcing himself to swallow it. His face turned red, then it slowly turned white. Disciple? The expert, which even he can't figure out what his rank is Huang Beiyu's master. Xiao Qi Yuan's hand trembled, his mouth trembled, and his tongue was tied. Counting one's chickens before they are hatched. 6. Xiao Qi Yuan's hand and mouth trembled, his tongue was tied. He stutteringly said, "Es sir, you have misunderstood. Huang Beiyu is my granddaughter. Her strength has improved leaps and bounds, so I just want to see how much she has improved. I don't have any intentions of hurting her." In about 1/10 of a second, after he had finished talking, a red ray of light suddenly came out from the depth of the forest again. The red ray of light was thin as a piece of hair, yet it carried the power of 10,000 soldiers. It can be said that Xiao Qi Yuan have a lot of combat experiences. He immediately tried to dodge the oncoming attack by using his speed. However, he was still unable to dodge it. Xiao Qi Yuan was hit by the red whip and was flung far away by its force. Xiao Qi Yuan spat out a mouthful of blood. He didn't even have a chance to counterattack as he curled up under the tree. It seemed as if his entire body was trembling like he was roasted by fire. When the blazing leopard saw that its summoner was being beaten so miserably, the anger from before immediately returned. It bared its teeth and let out a low growl towards the direction the whip had come from. When Xiao Qi Yuan saw the scene, he immediately tried to call the blazing leopard back into his space. However, before he even let out a sound, a red whip has come out again from the depth of the forest. The blazing leopard was flung away. After letting out a miserable shriek, it was lying on the ground whimpering. It looked like a pitiful dog, letting out woo-woo sounds. Xiao Qi Yuan couldn't help but be stunned. Generally speaking, spirit beasts are very proud. They rather die than submit. In front of powerful enemies, they wouldn't even show a trace of weakness. Even if Crown Prince John Yi's purple flaming unicorn or Shi Tian's ice wand spirit bird is in front of the blazing leopard, it won't let out any trace of surrendering, unless it met a mythological beast. What more, the mythological beast must be high-ranking and powerful. Could it be that the expert spirit beast is a mythological beast? Oh God, what kind of strength is this? This kind of strength is too frightening. Xiao Qi Yuan was gradually becoming afraid. The expert probably heard him say that he will kill Huang Beiyu. Thus, the expert is using such a heavy hand when dealing with him. Xiao Qi Yuan is a cunning old fox. With just a little bit of thinking, he realized that he should quickly depart. If he doesn't, he probably won't be able to keep his life. When Huang Beiyu saw Xiao Qi Yuan's eyes shift, she knew that this old man wants to escape. It won't be that easy to leave. Just as she shouted, Xiao Qi Yuan had put his blazing leopard in his space. After that, a fire ignited around his body and rose high into the air. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared. Huang Beiyu stared at the direction that Xiao Qi Yuan was standing before with hate. The old fox actually escaped. He was able to escape so lightly. He used himself as a chip to escape. In exchange, he will probably suffer some heavy injuries, the cold voice said as it was getting closer. Huang Beiyu turned her head and looked at the black-clothed man that is slowly coming out of the quiet forest. His appearance made him look like he had come out from a drawing. Although he appeared indifferent, his beauty could cause the downfall of a country. If you haven't interfered, I would have killed him. Huang Beiyu coldly glanced at him. Last time, he had whipped her face. This debt, she hasn't forgotten. It won't be beneficial to you if you kill him now. By leaving him alive, he won't dare to do anything, the honorable spirit indifferently said. Huang Beiyu squinted at him. Although he had meddled in her business, what he had said made sense. You don't need to waste your energy. No matter what you do, I won't worship you as my master. The honorable spirit looked at her, her gaze moved down her body. His gaze fell on her collar. His action and expression were very calm and indifferent, it didn't contain any indecent feeling. Counting one's chickens before they are hatched. 7. This person looks too good and appears to be too divine. Even if he doesn't wear clothes, people will still feel that he's inviolable. You don't want to know the secret of the black jade. I want to know. But I don't want to worship you as my teacher. In her heart, all matters are divided very clearly. It's no use to tempt her in order to achieve his goal. The two matters both have a boundary in her heart. She can't be muddle-headed where she sells her own principle in order to know the secret of the black jade. The honorable spirit indifferently looked at Huang Beiyu and said, Then don't you want to save the crown prince? Saying up to this, he raised his palm up. A small flame suddenly began burning in the middle of his palm. The punishment flame. Huang Beiyu's tranquil and calm eyes were suddenly illuminated by the flame, becoming incomparably bright. The honorable spirit looked at her appearance and slightly wrinkled his eyebrows. He abruptly put away the punishment flame, then turned around and left. I will give you 3 days to think about it. After you come to a decision, come to the 7th tower to look for me. His cold voice along with his black figure disappeared into the forest. 3 days, it's the deadline for when the poison of sky-swallowing red python will flare up. After that, no matter what miracle medicine that could suppress poison in his body, the poison will definitely flow into his 5 viscera and 6 bowels, injuring his internal organs. When that time comes, even with the punishment flame, Zhonyi might not even be able to withstand it. Huang Beiyu stood there as she quietly thought about it. She only has 3 days to think of a way to cure the poison in his body. In this world, is there no other way to cure the sky-swallowing red python's poison besides the punishment flame? She never liked the feeling of being threatened by other people. Huang Beiyu, there's nothing wrong with agreeing with him, Yang slowly said. Although there's nothing wrong, worshipping someone I hate as my master doesn't feel good. What's more, there's only one master that she recognizes in her heart. Yang thought about it and deviously said, You can worship him as your master and help cure the poison inside Crown Prince Zhonyi. Then in one fell swoop, you can also obtain the secret of the black jade. After that, you can just leave, you won't lose anything. After listening to Yang's words, Huang Beiyu sinisterly raised the corners of her mouth. I was just thinking the same thing. Humph, you're still young and yet you're already so treacherous and sly. Yang coldly snorted, disdaining her behavior. Aren't you the same? Huang Beiyu raised her eyebrows. In this world, how can there be many people who are upright and straightforward? As long as she doesn't hurt any good people, she won't feel guilty. Huang Beiyu slowly walked towards the testing field. The competition between the Imperial College and the Martial Arts College had already ended. Both Huang Beiyu and Princess Yingyi's battles resulted in a victory, only Luoluo lost. 2 wins and 1 loss. This is the Imperial College's most magnificent achievement over the past years. Teacher Guo felt really happy. The students from the Imperial College were also elated with happiness. When they saw Huang Beiyu walking, they quickly rushed over to her to congratulate her. Huang Beiyu's eyes swept across the people around her. The people from the Bujie family had already left, it seems like Luoluo had lost. Luoluo probably felt that he had lost face and was too embarrassed to stay, so he left with his people. Princess Yingyi and Zhonyi had also left. Huang Beiyu doesn't want to get to know the people around her. Therefore, she doesn't want to stay any longer. She plans to go home and study ways where she can cure the poison. Counting one's chickens before they are hatched. 8. On the bumpy carriage ride back, Huang Beiyu sat inside while holding her hands. She is thinking about the words that Xiao Qi Yuan had said before. He's right. In the Cart continent, no matter how strong the expert, without a powerful force to rely on, one can't walk horizontally. In this world, she doesn't intend to be arrogant or oppress others. It's just that as her strength gets stronger and stronger, the enemies she will face will also be stronger. She is just one person. There will be times where she won't be able to handle everything. If she's not careful and offend a deep-rooted and formidable force, then even her strength will have a limit. Even if it's that person that Yang had talked about, it would be impossible for that person to handle everything alone. The Bugye family, Bei Yarrow Country's Yuan family, the mysterious Guan Yarrow Hall that had never shown its face, and Azura City are all powerful forces. With the current strength that she has, she can't afford to even offend one of them. She slowly thought about it. Her mind has gradually formed a plan. She needs to build her own force step by step. She would need to recruit experts. In the future, if she offends a powerful force, she'll have a strong force that'll support her. Huang Bei Yu always had a unique personality. She doesn't like to rely on other people. But in this era, it is different. This is an era where people devour raw meat and fowls. It's an unstable and unpeaceful era because of the power struggle between various countries. This era needs heroes, but not just an individual hero. Her mind is very meticulous and thorough. She isn't be blinded by her own arrogance. But there is a little selfish reason why she wants her own force. In this era, everyone can compete for power. So why can't she? Princess, we have arrived, the horsekeeper said respectfully as the carriage has stopped. Huang Bei Yu withdrew her train of thought. Her elegant and exquisite face gradually has a resolute look. She opened the curtain and stepped down from the carriage. Originally, the horsekeeper standing on the side and swinging the horsewhip. Suddenly, when he saw the noble air around her body as she was coming out, he was scared witless. He straightened his body and looked at her in awe. He watched her until she entered Princess Zhong's residence. Only then had he let out a breath of air. He can't help but wonder how a 12-year-old girl can have such a fearful, imposing manner. The Xiao family wasn't present in Princess Zhong's residence. They were still at Lingyang College watching the competitions. Xiao Zhongqi and Xiao Yun's battle wasn't finished yet, so they won't be back for a while. The news of Huang Bei Yu's extraordinary performance at the testing field where she defeated two of the government minister's experts haven't reached Princess Zhong's residence yet. Therefore, the people in the residence still doesn't know anything. Huang Bei Yu walked through the back garden, ready to return to Flowing Cloud's pavilion. But she unexpectedly heard concubine Qin's voice from the lotus pond. You should work hard, even I'm not angry. Look at your useless appearance. You can't do anything correctly. What difference is there between Huang Bei Yu, that trash, and you? Concubine Qin's voice was very sharp. She's probably thinking that everyone had gone to Lingyang College today besides a few other concubines and servants. So her words were very unrestrained. Aunt Qin, I have always done as you instructed. I'm not born with any talent and my mother isn't a young lady from a prestigious family. How can a noble son from a big family take a liking to me? The sobbing and weeping sound belonged to Xiao Ling. She was probably scolded by concubine Qin for quite a long time, so she must have felt very wronged. Originally, Huang Bei Yu didn't want to meddle in other people's business. That Xiao Ling isn't a good thing. She'll happily let those dogs bite each other. But when concubine Qin had yelled that she's trash, it ignited a fire inside Huang Bei Yu's heart. Tidying up the family manor, 1. She pulled at the corner her skirt, then Huang Bei Yu walked over in large strides. Right now, she was not a useless person. If you are looking to die, then come over here as you wish to. Humph. Talent, Huang Bei Yu didn't have that either. Her mother hasn't been here for many years, but how come she had the ability to seduce one after the other? You are so useless. Behind the side of the Lotus Pond's rock mountains, concubine Qin pointed at Xiao Ling, harshly scolding her. The maid, Pei Xiong, helplessly looked at her. The moment she raised her head, she saw Huang Bei Yu walking over. There was a look of happiness on her face for a sudden. Third young miss, how come you are back so early? Pei Xiong had a good vision. She could see that Huang Beiyu was unlike how she was in the past, so she hurriedly rushed over to ask about her well-being. The competition is over, so I am naturally back. Who knew that the moment I walked into the door, I heard Concubine Qin's unpleasant words. Huang Beiyu's indifferent gaze swept over Concubine Qin's face. Concubine Qin was stunned. She didn't expect for Huang Beiyu to come back that early. Now, she couldn't insult and yell at Huang Beiyu like she did in the past. Her son, Xiao Zhongqi, had made a mistake and has been beaten down by the prefecture of Anguagong in all aspects. His life was in danger and needed to rely on Huang Beiyu in order to go through a couple of smooth and steady days. Concubine Qin's arrogant manner slowly vanished. She forcefully squeezed a smile on the third young miss. Is quite early today. How was today's competition? I think that the third young miss is an elegant person and doesn't like the violent scenes. It's okay if you lost. She watched her face, which was quite different than the arrogant look she placed on before. If Xiao Zhongqi hadn't made a mistake and offended the people of the prefecture of Anguagong, probably this Concubine Qin wouldn't give her nice faces too. Based on past experiences, if Huang Beiyu dared to open her mouth in this way, Concubine Qin would have given her a slap already. Who said that I lost? How come Concubine Qin wants to put a curse like that on me? Huang Beiyu's face turned serious and the tone immediately was cold, as though she was really angry. Concubine Qin was surprised. She had watched Huang Beiyu grow up since childhood and had never seen this useless person's face that gloomy. The third young miss didn't lose. Concubine Qin stated in a surprised tone. Could it be that this year, Principal Kang He and the judges all have the intentions of letting this useless person win? Listening to Concubine Qin's words, you seem to want me to lose. Huang Beiyu held a gloomy look on. Concubine Qin, these 2 years, you have been living through days of no restrictions that you have considered everyone to be beneath you are. Originally, Concubine Qin was a person with a bad attitude. She had been holding this in because of her son, but now that she heard this useless person speaking to her rudely, the anger in her heart burst out. What is the meaning of the third young miss's words? In this prefecture, there is the Lord who will give us justice. Naturally, we are all restrained by the Lord, so when the third young miss is saying this, what position are you placing the Lord in? If she hadn't exclaimed these words, it was still okay. Now that she said this immediately led Huang Beiyu to catch information which she could use against her. Letting the Lord bring justice? Huang Beiyu sneered, her voice strict. I am seeing that this prefecture is trying to flip the sky over. The prefecture of Princess Zhong that the emperor had created, when was it time for family Xiao's people to bring justice? Concubine Qin was frightened by her icy voice that she was stunned momentarily before snapping out of her trance, looking at Huang Beiyu as though a stranger. This, Princess Zhong had passed away for many years, so naturally in the prefecture, it would be the Lord who is bringing justice. Concubine Qin exclaimed boldly and confidently, not thinking in the slightest glimpse that there was something wrong. I didn't die yet. Family Xiao's people dared to criticize and give orders in the prefecture of Princess Zhong. I am seeing that if I don't tidy up the family manners today, then the reputation of Nanyi country's royal family will obliterate completely. Tidying up the family manner, too. Huang Beiyu's face immediately was filled with fogs, frightening. Concubine Qin was scared by her frightening, cold, imposing manner that she terrifyingly moved back a couple steps. From the bottom of her heart, there was a sense of chilliness that rose. However, she quickly reacted. The person who stood in front of her was a useless person. She basically had seen a ghost. How could she be that afraid of a useless person? Huang Beiyu, did you eat the wrong medicine today? Don't think that just because I have something to beg of you that you can ride on my head. You are just a... Concubine Qin's infuriated words weren't finished yet when a slap harshly slammed against her face. Pa. It was hard and the strength was so big that it wasn't like a 12-year-old girl. Concubine Qin was smacked to the point she fell and bumped against the fake mountains. She fell right into the lotus pond. Huang Beiyu walked over in large strides and the riding suit on her body made her seem like she was a hero, not like a weak 12-year-old girl at all. Her face was gloomy and had a strong, imposing manner. The maids and servants didn't dare to breathe loudly at all. Pei Xiong was stunned, seeing that Huang Beiyu reveal her power and prestige. In her heart, she was happy. She walked over, saying, "Third young miss, don't be angry. If your body suffers from being angry, then it won't be good." The surrounding maids, seeing that Pei Xiong had changed her face so quickly, were all shocked. Normally, concubine Qin's methods were very strong. Today, Huang Beiyu had only revealed a tiny portion of her power. It was concubine Qin who hadn't expected this. After all, who knew that a useless person had suddenly become so brave? When concubine Qin is ready, this Huang Beiyu would have to face the consequences. Therefore, those maids hurried over to the side of the lotus pond to save her. "Lady, be careful." Concubine Qin cried out loud as the maids pulled her up from the freezing cold lotus pond. The body seemed to be battered and exhausted. Huang Beiyu stood by the side of the lotus pond. The agile red riding suit made her pair of legs look beautiful. Standing there, she overlooked her, and the entire person at the moment seemed to have grown a bit. "Lady, concubine Qin has such a great face. You have become the lady of the prefecture of Princess Zhong that quickly are. This is worthy of celebration." Huang Beiyu's face was cold and scary. Under the strong imposing manner, those maids didn't dare to say anything either. They all lowered their heads. Concubine Qin's teeth chattered from the freezing waters. It was unable to see the expression on her face as it was covered with mud stains. However, thinking about it, it must be amazing. You are trying to rebel again. What are you guys standing here doing? Capture this girl. Today, if I don't use some methods, then where will there be a place for us to stand in the future? Concubine Qin yelled out loud at the top of her lungs. The house servants who had surrounded the garden had heard, walking over menacingly. The couple of them were bought by Concubine Qin normally, so they followed Concubine Qin's orders. Plus, Huang Beiyu was a girl without the father and mother's love. It's fine if she suffered a little bit. Watching as the servants moved closer and closer, Pei Xiong laughed coldly in her heart. A group of people who didn't have good visions. If the third young miss was as weak and useless as before, she dared to make a move on Concubine Qin today. Today, it was obvious that the third young miss was going to show off her strength in the prefecture. She wanted to let those people understand who was the actual master in this prefecture of Princess Zhong. However, she didn't know how Huang Beiyu's strength was like. She peered at the study house servants making their way over, so she was uncertain in her heart. Third young miss, there are so many people. In the ancestral hall, the moment the third young miss made a move, she twisted the strong servant's neck. Based on that, she knew that the third young miss had some abilities. Tidying up the family manor, 3. Huang Beiyu coldly stared at them, a group of reckless people. "Pei Xiong, bring old Zhong's horsewhip over." Huang Beiyu opened her mouth in an icy tone. Old Zhong was the horsekeeper that had just brought her back. Now, he was outside the door. Pei Xiong replied and immediately went out to take the horsewhip. Instantly after, she came back and handed it to her. The house servant who walked in the front was tall and powerful with buffy muscles. He viciously glared at Huang Beiyu. "Third young miss, lately you have been quite rampant, Pa." Huang Beiyu's cold gaze flashed past and the horsewhip harshly slapped against. This time, she hadn't left any mercy. She thought back to how these couple of people normally depended on Concubine Qin to bully them. When they had no money, they drank alcohol and gambled, coming over to stir up troubles and stealing her possessions. The items left by Princess Zhong were mostly taken away by these couple of bastards. What could not be forgiven was that they had bullied Dong Ling, who had tried her best to protect Huang Beiyu. The hatred in her heart rose. She didn't care that there was a life standing right in front of her. This was a bastard. They should die. The whip went out and the house servant didn't even have the ability to resist against this before he flew out by the force. The tall body harshly slammed against the ground, knocking against a couple of rocks on the rock garden. A mouthful of blood spat out and the servant's body hadn't rolled down from the rock garden yet. Huang Beiyu's pose was rapid and she already walked over, continuing to harshly whip him. That servant's body, at that moment, Fresh blood as though flowing water gurgled out. He tragically shrieked, and the tall servant as though a cow had hung on the rock garden, dead with blood flowing out still. The condition of his death was too horrifying and tragic, leading the maids to all scream out loud. Murder! Murder! Huang Beiyu turned her head around and the cold eyes swept across people. The cry out in fear all stopped. Everyone tightly shut their mouths, not even daring to breathe out loud. Those house servants who wanted to come up and teach Huang Beiyu a lesson before, now each one of them was like the color of dirt. They looked at Huang Beiyu as though she was the Grim Reaper from hell. She was stern and grim, leading people to be terrified. She directly killed a person, leading everyone to be quiet. This type of firm and malicious methods simply didn't seem like something a 12-year girl would have done. That is something only the devil could have done. Huang Beiyu slowly moved. Every time she moved a step, those people all moved back a step. Uniformly, it seemed as though the moment her aura got closer to them, they will all suffer a calamity and become the person who died tragically. That strange murderous aura seemed to be walking out from the land of corpses and the blood sea. It was gloomy and terrifying. She walked over to the lotus pond, and concubine Qin had been pulled up by the maids. At this moment, the couple of women all huddled together and trembled in fear, staring at her. Even concubine Qin, who was normally the most arrogant, didn't dare to say a word at this time. The throat gurgled as though there was something hindering it from speaking. Both of her hands trembled and her heart was scared. She stared at the whip in Huang Beiyu's hand. That fresh blood had still followed the whip, dripping down. It followed the places she had walked by, leaving long blood traces. Concubine Qin timidly moved to the back of the maids. Since birth, she had never felt this frightened and scared than ever. That house servant who had died before was the lesson learned from her mistake. It was her who had ordered him to go handle Huang Beiyu. Huang Beiyu murdered him, so does that mean she will also murder her? This girl, when did this girl become so dreadful? Huang Beiyu stood in front of them. She slightly lowered her eyes at them. The cold gaze stared at concubine Qin. Who gave you permission to come back up? Tidying up the family manor. 4. Concubine Qin was stunned. The maids all shook in fear too, seeming as though they hadn't listened to Huang Beiyu's words clearly. At one moment, they were all shocked. Go off. The shout, filled with coldness, seemed to be mixed with the deep smell of blood. Concubine Qin and a couple of maids were frightened. They didn't dare to say anything more, all jumping into the lotus pond. They soaked themselves in the icy water. Growing this big, she had never seen concubine Qin, who was that rampant and domineering, be in such a difficult situation. In her heart, she felt delighted. Third young miss, this maid can stay here to watch them. You can go back to rest. Seeing such a horrifying scene, which she killed a person, Pei Xiong had lingering fears. When she talked to Huang Beiyu, she stumbled with her words. In her heart, she secretly celebrated that she was lucky for being smart, having future sights that she had moved to the third young miss's side already. Otherwise, based on her normal style of arrogance, the person who she murdered will definitely be her. This third young miss had harsh methods, not showing mercy at all. If they should be murdered, they were murdered. She made prompt decisions. Within the imperial family and noble families of Nanyi country, there were only a couple of people like the third young miss. She dared to assert that the third young miss, in the future, will definitely accomplish huge events. This insignificant prefecture of Princess Zhong can't block her. No, maybe, even the Nanyi country is not a place where she can fly her wings high. Huang Beiyu faintly stared at a couple of people's gazes on her, looking fearfully within the lotus pond. She wanted to nod her head. When Pei Xiong becomes harsh, she is well comforted. But at this time, there came a maid's voice from the garden. Who is making so many noises? They have startled concubine Shue's rest. As they said this, a couple of beautiful maids escorted concubine Shue, who just had her nap, slowly walking over. That concubine Shue didn't expect for Huang Beiyu to come back so early either. She raised her head to look at her. First, she was stunned, then shocked when she saw concubine Qin, who was soaked by the freezing water in the lotus pond. Such an arrogant concubine Qin would land herself in such a position? Then when she saw the house servant who hung on the fake mountains, whipped to death by the back of the Huang Beiyu's side, her footsteps halted. The maids by concubine Shue's side screamed, "Dead person! Dead person ah! Quickly go call for the authorities that there is someone dead in the prefecture." Pei Xiong looked towards Huang Beiyu, seeing that she coldly pursed her lips, not wanting to speak at all. Therefore, she yelled in a loud voice, "What are you guys making an unnecessary racket about? Why does it matter that a couple of servants that the prefecture takes care of died? Report to which authority? Which government dares to manage this?" In this time period, within every noble family's home, there were always servants they kept. The type of servants where for many generations, their lives and freedoms all belonged to the master. Since birth, they were servants' maids for all the generations coming. Unless the master had a kind heart and removed them from the list of servants. Otherwise, within the records of the government, it will portray themselves as servants for all the generations. The life and death of servants, the government is unable to manage it. They are like privately raised domestic animals. Whether life and death, it is determined by the master's decisions. The system in which the prefecture looked after servants had lasted for many generations. When Huang Beiyu first arrived, she was against this rule. Now, she still disliked this rule. When Princess Zhong was still here, she had removed everyone from the list of servants within the prefecture of Princess Zhong and returned their freedom back to them. She also gave them money, letting them work to support themselves. But ever since Princess Zhong passed away, Xiao Yuan Cheng and a couple of concubines felt that within the noble family, if they don't have a couple of servants, they would be losing faces. Therefore, they brought a group of servants from outside with high prices back into the prefecture, having them live behind the alley of the prefecture of Princess Zhong. Tidying up the family manor. 5. It's because she knew that was a rule like that, so when she made a move to kill off the malicious servant, she didn't show mercy at all. This servant's life was hers. If she wanted to kill him, then she could. Pei Xiong's voice rang and the maid who was yelling out loud didn't dare to make another noise. They moved back a step, out of fright, saying in a small voice, "Lady, you see that the third young miss is holding a whip. Would that be the weapon?" Concubine Shui had already noticed the whip in Huang Beiyu's hand. That whip carried blood on it and made a long trace of bloodstains on the ground. It was hard for someone to ignore this. Based on this servant was killed by Huang Beiyu? Concubine Shui's face immediately turned pale and not good-looking. In her heart, there was a sense of chilliness rising too, heading straight for the bones. Huang Beiyu looked at her and coldly smiled. Then slowly, step by step, she walked towards Concubine Shui. Concubine Shui was terrified of the aura of the bloodstains on her that she kept moving back. However, her actions were not as quick as Huang Beiyu's. After a couple of steps, Huang Beiyu was in front of her. Third young miss. What is the matter?" Concubine Shui inquired, stuttering. Her heart felt as though it was playing drums. However, Concubine Shui, who had a deep mind, naturally couldn't reveal a scared expression on her face like how Concubine Qin had done so. Although her expression was quite ugly, she still forced a smile on her face. Today's competition was quite tiring. Probably, I would need to ask Concubine Shui for some help. Huang Beiyu opened her mouth lazily and the whip in her hand was suddenly raised. "What do you want to do?" Concubine Shui shouted out loud. On her face, she finally showed a look of horror. There was no way she couldn't be afraid. Such a bloody corpse hanging on the fake mountains and the people by the side who held looks of respect led her to be afraid. How could she possibly not be scared? She stared at Huang Beiyu with a pale face and Concubine Shui's heart rose and fell quickly. She needed to rely on the maid by her side in order to keep her body steady. Huang Beiyu moved her head to the side, smiling as though it was a joke. "Lady Shui, what are you afraid of?" She specially clenched the word lady harder when exclaiming the sentence. From Concubine Shui's ears, it felt as though a mockery and tease. The third young miss is saying jokes. How can you address me as the lady are? It's those small wenches who are not thoughtful, letting people ridicule them. This is unjustified and undeserving. The third young miss should just call me concubine. Concubine Shui wasn't like Concubine Qin, who didn't have a brain. She knew what to do best according to the situation. Concubine Shui's voice was trembling as she replied. Huang Beiyu knew that she had scared her enough, so she casually waved the whip in her hand. Then she shoved the whip into Concubine Shui's hand, pressing it on her valuable silk clothes. The fresh blood immediately dyed upon Concubine Shui's clothes. The bright red color contrasted against Concubine Shui's skin, making her look snow white. Concubine Shui gulped a mouthful of saliva, forcing herself to speak. What is the third young miss doing? Before I had said it already. I want to ask Concubine Shui for help. Huang Beiyu faintly retorted. Hold it. Concubine Shui deeply sighed. She harshly bit her lips, trembling while raising her hand over and touching the blood-stained whip, then immediately pulling her hand away. Third young miss, I can't see blood. Hold it. Huang Beiyu yelled, and the whole face was stern and strict. Concubine Shui could only slowly lift her hand, and the two hands held the whip. From the expression on her face, she was almost going to cry. Although she wasn't the wealthy daughter of an official who lived like a princess, she was still in normal people's family. After she followed Princess Zhong deliberately instructed her with the etiquettes of unmarried daughter of a noble house. Tidying up the family manor. 6. After that, she married Xiao Yuan Cheng and became a concubine to him. She hadn't suffered any from then either. Her days weren't that bad compared to the ladies and wives. She had never seen such a bloody thing before. Don't even mention holding it in her hands. However, she was frightened by Huang Beiyu's imposing manner today. She had no choice but to hold it. Huang Beiyu moved back a step and faintly looked at Concubine Qin and the others who were soaked in the lotus pond still. She slowly stated, "Trouble to the Concubine Shui to help look after them. Concubine Qin doesn't know her manners and has an evil tongue. This princess is punishing her to be in the lotus pond in order to reflect over her actions. Without this princess's order, no one can let her up." Concubine Shui nodded her head. Since the princess had ordered, naturally I will follow the orders. However, this whip Huang Beiyu coldly exclaimed, "I am afraid that some people won't cry until they have seen the coffin. Without a warning, they will become undisciplined and out of order. Therefore, Concubine Shui, please stand to the side of Lotus Pond holding this whip which just killed someone. Let them see in order to deepen their impressions. Otherwise, in the future days, they won't remember the lesson." Want her to hold onto the whip and stand by the lotus pond? Then doesn't that mean she needed to stand for a long time? Concubine Shui listened to this and in her heart, she was terrified and angry. But now, within the prefecture, there is not a single person. Xiao Yun and Xiao Zhongqi aren't here. If she made her attitude tough, then she might land herself with the same consequences as Concubine Qin. Then wouldn't be even worse. Don't worry. I will definitely follow the orders. Concubine Shui forced a smile on. Huang Beiyu nodded her head, satisfied. She turned around, slowly walking out of the garden, not looking at Concubine Shui or Concubine Qin. After walking a couple steps, from the back came a trembling voice. Third sister. Huang Beiyu turned her head around to see Xiao Ling with a terrified face on but forcing a smile on to look at her. Does the elder sister have a matter? Xiao Ling swallowed her saliva, not knowing where to place her hands. Before, when she saw Huang Beiyu murdered someone without any mercy, she was frightened to the point she didn't even dare to make a noise. Then when she slowly thought of the time she bullied her in the past, she felt even more afraid. Xiao Ling was the type of person who was afraid of the bullies but bullied the nice ones. When Concubine Qin was impressive and difficult to deal with, she was afraid of Concubine Qin. She always followed Concubine Qin's orders, but now that she saw that Concubine Qin had suffered under the hands of Huang Beiyu, she was petrified of Huang Beiyu now. Third sister. Before it was the elder sister who isn't thoughtful and made a lot of mistakes. The third sister normally is forgiving. Please don't argue with the elder sister over this. Huang Beiyu tilted her head, thinking about it and asking seriously, what did the elder sister do wrong? In Xiaoling's heart, there was some hope that rose. She thought in her heart that Huang Beiyu obviously inherited Princess Zhong's kindness and generousness, not going to argue with her. Well, actually, it's nothing big anyway. Everyone is a family. It's inevitable for bumpy roads. In the future, this elder sister won't make any more mistakes. Xiao Ling hurriedly exclaimed. Huang Beiyu also slightly tilted the corner of her lips up. Elder sister's surname is Xiao, so how are you a family with me? You just happen to live in the same prefecture is all. Plus, I'm the type of person who remembers and holds grudges a lot. Elder sister needs to be careful. Xiao Ling's face turned white. She suddenly felt the whole body was icy cold. That servant's bloody corpse seemed to be in front of her eyes, rocking about. Her 2 legs were limp and almost fell down from not being able to stand straight. Huang Beiyu curled up her lips, smiling of some sorts at Xiao Ling. What is the matter with the elder sister? You must take care of your body. If you cannot be of use, then I will be very disappointed. Tidying up the family manor, 7, Xiao Ling stared at her with a pale white face. A couple of times, the lips moved but no words came out. Scared to death. These people, if she doesn't make some harsh moves and give them some looks, they will never know how powerful they can be. Young miss. Dong Ling heard of the news and rushed over. Once she saw that Xiao Ling was blocking Huang Beiyu's path, she thought that something had happened, so she hurriedly rushed over. When she saw Xiao Ling's pale white face, she was slightly comforted. The wind is big outside. Young miss, let's go back. As Dong Lin said this, she raised her head to look at Xiao Ling, smiling. The elder young miss's face doesn't look that good. You should hurry back and rest as well. Once she finished, she walked over to hold onto Huang Beiyu's hand, slowly escorting her back. That Pei Xiong looked from the back for a while before coming up and following them as well. Today, the third young miss has demonstrated her powers. I see that concubine Shuer and Qin are both terrified. In the future, they definitely will dare not to look down upon the third young miss. Dong Ling peered at her. When the lord and the elder young master comes back, maybe they will stir up some troubles. What are you being happy about? Towards the type of maids who betrayed their masters and acted flexibly according to the situation, Dong Ling normally didn't like them. Therefore, she talked in a rude tone. Pei Xiong knew that Dong Lin and Huang Beiyu are very close to each other, so she didn't dare to be impudent. Pei Xiong. Huang Beiyu slowly opened her mouth to ask, the things that I ordered you to do, how is it coming along? The third young miss, please don't worry about it. This matter, this maid also knows a little about it. I had followed the clues, tracking it down and gained a lot of information. Pei Xiong saw that she could make an accomplishment, so she immediately exclaimed. The money, account book, warehouse, etc. within the prefecture are all looked after by the housekeeper Ju. In the past, housekeeper Ju was the person appointed by Princess Zhong, but later on, he was bought by concubine Qin, so he had helped concubine Qin to look after the bills of the region of Qinghe. These couple of years, concubine Qin wasn't that stupid either. Whenever it was time to hand in the taxation of Qinghe, she will secretly store some amounts and let the housekeeper Ju to secretly make some movements. In the future, even if people wanted to check it, they wouldn't be able to. I feel like that concubine Shuer would also do that. Huang Beiyu nodded her head. Making fake accounts, she had seen a lot of this before. It was nothing new. It's just that the housekeeper Ju had been regarded highly by Princess Zhong and who knew that he was actually bought by concubine Qin. This was quite disappointing. However, it wasn't too surprising. All the servants that were loyal to the prefecture of Princess Zhong were all forced away. Those who are left, most of them were bought by other people. Otherwise, based on Princess Zhong's prestige when she was still alive, how could Huang Beiyu be bullied to this point? The account books are all handled by the housekeeper Ju? Dong Ling inquired. The housekeeper Ju takes care of it. Because concubine Shuer has a detailed mind, the lord had also let her look after it. It had conveniently let her make some movements as well. Huang Beiyu faintly stated, since they had made some moves on the account books, then naturally we are unable to see anything. It's just that since concubine Shuer and Qin had embezzled quite a bit, then they probably have a secret government treasury of their own. Dong Ling listened to this, scrunching his eyebrows. In regards to the money, even if we make a Lanmu card, we probably won't find anything either. Those gold and silvers, jade artifacts, antiques, and such could be hidden into the space ring, then it would be harder to find. Lanmu card, Huang Beiyu thought for a while, then suddenly smiled. The biggest money farm in Nanyi country is the family of Bujie? Dongling laughed. Not only just the Nanyi country, but the biggest money farm on the Kart mainland is also the family of Bujie. A flash of bright and radiant light went by Huang Beiyu's eyes. If it was the family of Bujie, then she could think of some ideas. Dongling saw that she had a lot of confidence. She couldn't help to be curious and ask, did the young miss think of something? Tidying up the family manor. 8. Ideas. Slowly thinking about it, there will be ideas. Huang Beiyu turned around to say to Pei Xiong, Pei Xiong, go look after concubine Qin. Don't worry about it, third young miss. This maid will follow your orders well, Pei Xiong excitedly exclaimed. It was her honor to be regarded highly by the third young miss. After they made Pei Xiong leave, Dongling was a little bit worried. Young miss, what happened today? Would it stir up a commotion? Are you scared? Dongling is scared, but the matters that the young miss had made a decision upon, Dongling will definitely support you to the end. It's just that family Xiao's power, after all, they're still so powerful, there was no way for Dongling to not worry about it. Despite how powerful young Mrs. Strength was, she was unable to fight against a powerful noble family. Family Xiao? Actually, I have been wanting to know how powerful the family Xiao was. However, I haven't had the chance to find out. Well, this was a great chance to find out. A lot of noble families like to hide their strengths. Many masters were all hidden and didn't like to reveal themselves. Therefore, sometimes they thought that there was only a couple of masters. If they accidentally provoked them, they probably will suffer from this. If family Xiao had also hidden some of their strengths, they will need to spend some time in order to work against them. This time, Xiao Yuan Cheng had escaped back. First, they will see how he will deal with this matter. It was pretty fine to investigate what was true and false about him, but by doing this, won't it be a little risky? Dongling couldn't help to be worried. Towards family Xiao, they didn't have a lot of knowledge about them. If behind Xiao Yuan Cheng's back, there was a master, then it will become complicated. How would you gain the tiger cubs without going into the tiger's cave? Huang Beiyu elegantly curled up the corner of her lips. If she was being sloppy, then she wouldn't be able to do anything. Her personality was pretty straightforward and enjoyed risks. Plus, saying the truth, she felt as though Xiao Yuan Cheng wasn't any threat to her at all. Royal Court Beiyu. The bloody corpse hung on the fake mountains and held a tragic look as though it was staring at everyone. Such a huge dead corpse was there hanging. No matter how arrogant concubine Qin was, she didn't dare to easily make a move anymore. Plus the person looking after her was concubine Shui, who normally was against her. If she walked out from the lotus pond, this concubine Shui will definitely go over to Huang Beiyu and complain, adding details to the story. She didn't want to die, becoming like that servant. She deeply believed that if she irritated Huang Beiyu enough, then she will really be killed. During this season, the water was actually freezing. Concubine Qin was freezing to the point where she trembled, her teeth have been chattering. She let the maid surround her, but everyone was cold. Hugging together didn't help in this case. Although concubine Shui was in a better situation than her, standing by the lotus pond, she held the horsewhip in her hand which had killed someone. She was afraid and felt disgusted, not any better than her. Lady, that Huang Beiyu had left, so she can't see this anymore. How about you just throw this nuisance away? The maid by concubine Shui's side, Xia Chun, carefully inquired. They had not personally seen Huang Beiyu murder someone. The feeling of fear was naturally less than those people by concubine Qin's side. Shut up. Concubine Shui coldly shouted, I have taught you guys every day. How come you guys still don't have good taste? A mouth, saying lady. Do you guys purposefully want that girl to have something to use against me? This maid knows that she is wrong, Xia Chun replied, feeling as though she was wronged. But lad, concubine, that third young miss has been even more arrogant lately. Should we let the second young miss teach her a lesson? Concubine Shui slightly peered at the servant's corpse hanging on the fake mountains, That girl was able to kill someone, so she probably has some strange methods. Tidying up the family manor. 9. No matter her strange methods. As long as we bring the Lord's father over, she can't try to be impressive anymore. Xia Chun exclaimed this with confidence. In the maid's eyes, the Lord's father was an 8-star summoner. What could Huang Beiyu, that thing, be counted as? Plus the Lord's father adores the second young miss a lot. As long as he finds out that the second young miss's mother had suffered over here, then would he not stand up for the second young miss? When concubine Shui heard the words, she felt slightly comforted in her heart. Right, they still had the Lord's father as support. Within the family Xiao's blood, only Xiao Yun had the talent of being a summoner. Even though Yun-Er's reputation wasn't good right now, but besides adoring Yun-Er, who else would the Lord's father adore? Saying the truth, now concubine Shui couldn't help to wish for Huang Beiyu to die right now. Before, she had left her life because she wanted Huang Beiyu to compliment her when meeting with the Empress Dowager so that she can become the first lady within the prefecture. But ever since what happened in the prefecture of the Prime Minister, she knew that Huang Beiyu wasn't someone she was able to control. This girl was kind on the surface, but in her heart, there was no telling how evil she was. If she still left her to be, she will eventually become a problem for her. Since she can't rely on Huang Beiyu now, then what is the point of leaving her to be? With regards to the Prime Minister, as long as her Yun-Er worked hard, it wasn't impossible to be able to deal with them. There was no need to look at that girl's face. Concubine Shui pondered over this, and in her heart, slowly, there was the motive to kill her. Sister Shui, who knew that you are normally a powerful person and would be frightened by that girl. Concubine Qin, who was soaked in the water, heard her conversation with her maid, sneering. Sister Qin, aren't you the same? Look at yourself. Later on, when the Lord sees this, that would be amazing. Concubine Shui sneered back. Concubine Qin harshly exclaimed, that girl, I won't let her go so easily. After all, she still had a powerful son. She was able to give Huang Beiyu a slight lesson. As she thought about this, there were loud noises from outside. The servants were chatting about, and at that moment, the noise got even louder. Xian Yuan Cheng's angry voice rose. Is she trying to rebel? Did she have me, her father, in her eyes anymore? As soon as concubine Qin heard the voice, she immediately started bawling in front of her maids and wiping her tears. That was to the point where she was heartbroken and grieving. If she had an exquisite makeup on with beautiful clothes, then it would contain some amorous feelings, but her whole body was covered in mud and stains. Her hair was all scattered apart that it was frightening. Mother. Xiao Zhongqi was the first one who rushed in. When he saw the scene in the lotus pond, he felt really angry. He jumped into the lotus pond to save concubine Qin. Lord, you need to bring me justice. Once concubine Qin got on the shore, she cried, trying to beg for help to Xiao Yuan Cheng. Originally, she thought that crying, Xiao Yuan Cheng will definitely be seething in anger and order for people to bring Huang Beiyu out to punish her. However, she had cried for a while but only noticed that Xiao Yuan Cheng, although had an infuriated face on, he kept quiet. What was the matter? Mother, stop crying first. Xiao Zhongqi clenched his teeth whilst saying this. There was a feeling of a grievance within his tone that he was unable to explain. Qi, what happened? Concubine Qin was bewildered. How come the son she was most proud of was being that strange too? Xiao Zhongqi stared at the servant's corpse hanging on the fake mountains. The expression on his face was as bad-looking as it could be, as though what belonged to him had been stolen away. Tidying up the family manor. 10. Huang Beiyu had won during the competition of Lingyang College. Xiao Zhongqi stated, not willing to accept this. Concubine Qin widened her eyes. 1. That useless thing actually won during the Lingyang College's competition? She heard that the Imperial College was going against the Martial Arts Academy. The students of the Martial Arts Academy were weak. She won who? Xiao Zhongqi humphed. The government ministers Lin Wn Yi. The future Jing Wangfei. Concubine Qin covered her mouth. She heard that Lin Wn Yi was a powerful figure. Her strength was a match with her son, who she was proud of. There isn't any Jing Wangfei, Xiao Yuan Cheng suddenly exclaimed in an angry tone. Today, Jing Wang was infuriated. He said that he won't marry a woman that evil and malicious. Concubine Qin was shocked. In her heart, she felt a bit chilly. However, she thought that since Lin Wenyi can't become Jing Wangfei, it will serve some benefits to her. After all, she was born from the prefecture of the Prime Minister. She knew that her father didn't get along with Government Minister Lin as usual. If Government Minister Lin's daughter can't become the Jing Wangfei, wouldn't it be as she desired? Looks like it will be busy within the prefecture of the Government Minister. The corner of Concubine Qin's lips curled up into a smile. That face filled with mud and stains was really in the way. Xiao Yuan Cheng humphed. What is this look? You've become happy now, are you? Lord, that Huang Bei you had won Lin Wenyi out of luck most likely. Lin Wenyi is from the prefecture of the government minister but also doesn't get along with our prefecture. If she can't become the Jing Wangfei, shouldn't we be happy as well? Concubine Qin answered, not willing to back down. Unacknowledged woman. Xian Yuan Cheng yelled, what do you know? Luck. 1-2 times can be luck, but the third time? How could she have such a piece of good luck? What third time? Concubine Qin was the standard type of woman who held no brain. She blinked her eyes and looked towards her son. Qi, what else happened today? Xiao Zhongqi turned his head around with his eyebrows scrunched. His tone was bitter. Today, Huang Bei you had also won against Lin Zicheng. That Lin Zicheng had gotten severe injuries now. Hiss, all the servants and maids standing by the surroundings all couldn't help but let out a cold sigh. The bloody whip in Concubine Shue's hand was just taken away from Xiao Yun. Her hands were still shaking, and when she heard the words, she was stunned. Right after, she didn't even care that the person who was talking was Xiao Zhongqi. She hurriedly inquired. I heard that Lin Zicheng was about to approach the rank of a golden warrior. Did he underestimate his enemy? When she said the words, Concubine Shui could hear that her heart was frantically pounding. Xiao Yun, with a low voice, replied, it's not that he underestimated his enemy. Lin Zicheng used all his strength and even used skills of his sword but was heavily injured by that girl after she insulted him. Ah! Concubine Shui held onto her chest, letting out a moan. How is this possible? She was basically no, she is not a useless thing. Concubine Qin widened her eyes. Her gaze shifted towards the corpse on the fake mountains. She suddenly thought back to the scene where Huang Bei you killed someone. Fresh blood was everywhere and she was cruel and ruthless. Suddenly, she felt like darkness was in front of her eyes. She fell in Xiao Zhongqi's arms. Mother! Xiao Zhongqi yelled out loud. She hurriedly carried Concubine Qin and said to Xiao Yuan Cheng, Father, I will go bring the mother to rest. Go. At this time, Xiao Yuan Cheng was very irritated. He didn't want to see Concubine Qin, who was noisy and ignorant. This type of woman, only when she's in the room that there is a slight pleasure. When facing towards important matters, she was an idiot. Who dared to provoke me? 1. When Concubine Qin and Xiao Zhongqi both left, Xiao Yuan Cheng then helplessly exclaimed, how come that girl was so powerful? Xiao Yun thought back to the Seven Towers forest where grandfather personally went to give Huang Bei you a lesson today. She had no idea how that went. Mother, was Huang Bei you injured? Injured? Concubine Shui was confused. She thought about it then shook her head. I see that she's pretty good. Yuna, what's the matter? Didn't have injuries. How is that possible? Xiao Yun didn't dare to believe this. Could it be that grandfather was afraid that the crown prince was also in Lingyang College so he didn't make a move towards Huang Bei you? It must be like this. After all, Huang Bei you still had the emperor and empress dowager as support. If something happened to her, the emperor will definitely be angry. Plus during that time, the crown prince and princess Yingyi knew that she was the one who went to find Huang Bei you according to grandfather's orders. If something happened to her, family Xiao won't escape from this. Humph, she got away easily. Xiao Yun bit her lips, saying, she is so arrogant today. If we don't teach her lesson, in the future she might flip the sky over. Right. Concubine Shui looked towards Xiao Yuan Cheng as though plotting a scheme. Today, she said that the person who is in charge of the prefecture of Princess Zhong is her family. Xiao's people don't have permission to manage this prefecture. She didn't even place the Lord in her eyes. Xiao Yuan Cheng originally was raging already. Now that he heard these words, the anger was rushing up. Humph! I knew that she was a cruel and unscrupulous girl. I had raised her up to this age for no reason. Mother, all these years, she had treated her kindly. But how did she treat Mother today? Mother's body is weak. How could she endure this type of fright? Xiao Yun was even angrier from what she was saying. I'm seeing that with this matter, we need to have grandfather show his face about this. These couple of years, the Lord's father have been resting peacefully. What happened in the prefecture, it's better to probably not disturb him. Concubine Qin explained in a graceful manner. Humph! Family Xiao's people have already been bullied. How can we still submit to humiliation? Yun, go find your grandfather. Ask him to come and take charge of family matters. Who dared to provoke me, too? Xiao Yun heard this and was secretly happy about it. Even the father had made this decision. That Huang Beiyu's good days are coming to an end. She hurriedly called for her own maid, Xia and I, to call for the Lord's father over. Humph! With a senior coming over to manage family matters, the Emperor and Empress Dowager won't be able to intervene with this. Father, Mother, you guys go back to rest. Grandfather will be here soon, Xiao Yun stated. Xiao Yuan Cheng nodded his head. He knew of his own father's thoughts. The prefecture of Princess Zhong was a fat piece of meat. All the years, Xiao Qi Yuan also had the thoughts of gaining some profits from this. This time, isn't it a great chance? He had been in the prefecture of Princess Zhong for many years. It's about time that he controls this place. Once she saw that Xia and I went out, Pei Xiong hurriedly went to report to Liu Yunji. The Lord's father, that is not a figure to easily be provoked. Third young miss, do you want this maid to secretly let that maid Xia and I be? Pei Xiong had a harsh heart and made the action of wiping one's throat. Huang Beiyu's eyes flashed over a mocking smile. She adjusted her dress. If they want to bring the Lord's father over, how can they let only the second sister do so? Dongling, you go too. Say that I am inviting the Lord's father over to the prefecture as the guest. Please let the Lord's father come. Third young miss. Pei Xiong was bewildered. What play was the third young miss playing at this time? If she took the initiative to invite the Lord's father over, isn't she bringing a Buddha back? That Lord's father was always on the second young miss's side. If the strength of an 8-star summoner was really not to be provoked, Pei Xiong wasn't Huang Beiyu's trusted aide, so she obviously didn't know what she was thinking. But Dong Ling had understood it already. She answered and walked out the door. Pei Xiong was jealous and envy in her heart. She was much smarter than Dong Ling. When can she be the third young miss's trusted aide? When the third young miss takes control of the prefecture, she can be the first maid. Third young miss, is there any other matter you would like for this maid to do? When you go back, look after concubine Qin, and it's good to find out where she had secretly hid all her money. When Pei Xiong heard this, she hesitated momentarily. Third young miss, today I have helped you. Concubine Qin probably can't accept me anymore. How about Pei Xiong? Huang Beiyu raised her eyes, looking at her. If you have done a good job on this, it's the best information I can use against concubine Qin. If you have made such a great accomplishment, then in the future, all the matters within the prefecture of Princess Zhong, I will give them all to you to manage. By that time, you are probably the first female housekeeper of Nanyi country. Pei Xiong was ecstatic in her heart. She forgot all about being afraid and hesitant. Within the Nanyi country, the prefecture of Princess Zhong held a lot of statuses. If she became the housekeeper of the prefecture of Princess Zhong, then when she goes out, her position is not any worse than the young misses. Yes, this maid will go and complete the task given by the third young miss. She stared at Pei Xiong's silhouette and coldly smiled. Human desire is such a frightful thing. For desire, they could even forget about their lives. Xiao Yun called for someone to call for the Lord's father. This news was spread out and all the maid servants in the prefecture were quiet. They all quietly waited for the Lord's father's arrival. When the time comes, there will definitely be a great show. Huang Beiyu was resting leisurely by herself, so she took out 100 refinement scroll to examine the different ways of detoxifying. As long as it worked in the slightest bit, she will try it. Although 3 days was short, no matter what, she will consider for Zhonyi's life. She didn't like owing other people. Who dared to provoke me? 3. Meanwhile at Baishui courtyard, grandfather said that he can't come. Why? Came Xiao Yun's anxious voice. Xia Ni answered, it's the Lord's father who said that he isn't feeling well. He needs to rest in the prefecture and said that he doesn't want to question about the matters within the prefecture of Princess Zhong. He wants the Lord and the second young miss to find a solution themselves. Nonsense. Xiao Yun clapped against the table, standing up. How would grandfather say something like this? It must be you. This girl who hadn't explained everything clearly. Xia Ni hurriedly kneeled on the ground. Second young miss, this maid is innocent. Although this maid is clumsy with words, this maid is still able to say a couple of sentences. This was the Lord's father's original words. This maid reported this back to the second young miss, without missing a single word. Second young miss, please investigate this. Xiao Yun clenched her teeth, deeply sighing, then she slowly sat down. In her mouth, she mumbled, it doesn't make sense. How come grandfather wouldn't come? Concubine Shui walked out from the room and lowered her voice. Yun, your father is sleeping right now. What are you making a loud racket about? Xiao Yun pursed her lips. Grandfather said that he's not coming. How come the grandfather isn't coming? He's an old man, so he must be busy. You think that everyone is like you? Yun, what happened today? Concubine Qin had suffered more. How about let them go torment each other while we sit in the mountains and watch the fight? Indeed, sitting in the mountains and watching the fight was much easier. However, what she was more concerned with was why the grandfather isn't coming. Today, within the Lingyang College, the grandfather let her go find Huang Beiyu. At that time, the grandfather had told her in a serious tone that if this Huang Beiyu was able to listen and let him use her as he wished, then he will keep her. If she didn't listen to him, then he will definitely not show mercy. Now that Huang Beiyu was that arrogant, how could the grandfather keep enduring this? Normally, grandfather had deep foresight and rigorous schemes. This time, there is probably some reason behind it. Xiao Yun secretly thought about it when suddenly a maid from outside came in, reporting, Lady, young miss, the servant outside came reporting that the Lord's father is coming. Grandfather is coming. Xiao Yun suddenly stood up. She was ecstatic. She knew that grandfather will definitely go against Huang Beiyu. How could he possibly not come? She harshly glared at Xia Ni. You, this girl is probably being lazy. Look at how I am going to teach you a lesson tonight. Go, let's go greet grandfather. Xiao Ni held a crying face on, feeling as though she was wronged within her heart. She really did bring the words over. Plus, she did follow the Lord's father's order, then came back to relay what he had exclaimed. The Lord's father did say he wasn't going to come. How come he is coming at this time now? When the concubine Shui heard that the Lord's father was going to come, she wanted to call Xiao Yuan Cheng up from inside the room, but looking at Xia Ni's face, her eyebrows were slightly scrunched. Ni, are you sure you brought the words over and the Lord's father said that he wasn't coming? Report to the lady, this maid for sure had brought the words over. The Lord's father indeed did say he wasn't going to come. The eyelid of Xia Ni's eyes was brimmed with tears. The second young miss's methods were usually harsh. She had no idea how she was going to teach her a lesson tonight. Just by thinking about it, she was beginning to shiver all over her body. Lady, you need to bring justice to this maid. This maid really wasn't being lazy and didn't lie. Concubine Shui held onto the handrail of the seat, standing. She scrunched her eyebrows, thinking for a while. This Xia Ni, from childhood, she was the one training her. She was a diligent and attentive, honest person, never lying. Then what happened with the Lord's father today? He didn't need to play a joke on a maid. How come he said he wasn't coming but then end up coming? In her heart, there was a faint feeling of something bad happening. She hurriedly ordered towards Xia Ni, quickly go in and wake the Lord up. Tell him that the Lord's father is here. Who dared to provoke me? 4. As she finished her words, she rushed out to chase after Xiao Yun. Living for so many years, after all, she wasn't like Xiao Yun, this 16 years old and that innocent. Some things, you can't look just on the surface. Xiao Qi Yuan was carried over by a sedan chair. His body was covered by the thick fox fur coat, bundled tightly. He had a mink fur hat on, covering the white hair. Besides the 4 servants carrying the sedan chair, Xiao Qi Yuan had brought along a couple of extraordinary people. 2 men and 1 woman, looking at the prefecture of Princess Zhong in alarm before daring to walk in. Grandfather. Xiao Yun had already stepped out, welcoming him. She was delighted and crisply calling for him. I thought you aren't going to come. I thought that you don't adore Yun anymore. Xiao Qi Yuan walked off from the sedan chair. He swept his eyes across Xiao Yun, revealing a sense of warning. Xiao Yun inquired out of confusion, Grandfather, what are you looking at? Where does Princess Beiyu live? Xiao Qi Yuan didn't pay attention to her, immediately asking. Xiao Yun felt joy in her heart. As expected, Grandfather was coming to stir up troubles for Huang Beiyu. However, if they were the ones coming to find her, doesn't that make it seem like they have no faces? She should let Grandfather go to the front hall first and sip some tea while she orders for people to tie Huang Beiyu out. Grandfather, we have prepared your favorite tea in the front hall. How about you first go? Her words weren't even finished when Xiao Qi Yuan turned impatient. He casually grabbed a maid over, lead the way. The maid was frightened. In front of her was an 8-star summoner. How did she dare to resist this? She hurriedly led the way to Liu Yunji where Huang Beiyu lived. Grandfather? Xiao Yun held a face of confusion. Grandfather didn't need to be that urgent, right? Yun Concubine Shui who had run out grabbed onto Xiao Yun's hand, a look of uneasiness. Mother, what is the matter? If your body isn't feeling well then go back to rest. I will go see how Grandfather is going to teach Huang Beiyu a lesson. Concubine Shui glared at her. In her heart, she sighed. After all, she was still a kid. No matter how smart she was, during times of importance, she would still make stupid mistakes. Stupid girl, did you not hear how your grandfather addressed that girl? Concubine Shui hurriedly exclaimed, as though afraid that Xiao Yun will run away after not hearing her words. Xiao Yun was stunned. She recalled, Call Bei suddenly, that lovable and good-looking face turned white. How come it's like this? It's impossible. Before, I must have heard wrong, Xiao Yun mumbled. The body, on the other hand, turned freezing cold already from top to bottom. Yun let's better not easily make a move. Even your grandfather had also at this time, Concubine Shui had felt the real terror. She thought back to today in the garden where there was a servant's corpse hanging on the mountains. Suddenly, she felt as though her hair had stood up. Xiao Yun choked with emotions. Suddenly, tears fell out of the eyelids. She started screaming, I don't want this. I don't want this. Mother, even until death, I won't believe this. That slutty girl, how dare she? Speak with a lower voice. Concubine Shui covered her mouth and turned around to look at the surrounding people. Thankfully, at this time, a lot of people knew that the Lord's father was about to arrive and was on his way to Huang Beiyu's Liu Yunji. They thought that there was going to be a show to watch, so they all headed towards the direction of Liu Yunji. Xiao Yun woo a couple times before she sniffled and exclaimed with her red and swollen eyes, I don't understand. How come even grandfather is like this? Concubine Shui thought about it in detail, that Huang Beiyu, in the past, has been deemed as a useless thing. She had let anyone bullied her. Who dared to provoke me? 5. However, lately, she seemed to have changed into another person. The last time when she killed Shui Meng on the arena, I was already suspicious. No matter how lucky that girl was, there was no way she could be that lucky. Mother's meaning is Xiao Yun wiped her tears. too shocked to the point she was unable to process the words. Concubine Shui continued to explain. Today, she had also won against the prefecture of the government ministers Lin Wen Yi and Lin Zicheng, the two masters. Right now, inferring her strength, she probably is at the rank of a golden warrior already. In such a short period of time, her strength was able to rapidly improve. There must be some encounters or some masters giving her direction. The words, in Xiao Yun's ears, felt extremely ear-piercing. This whole life, she had tried her best and didn't even have some miracle encounters or even a master giving her directions. How come Huang Bei Yu had met this? Could it be that this whole life, she can't be better than Huang Bei Yu? She would be stepped under her feet. Mother! Xiao Yun suddenly lowered her voice. She harshly exclaimed, no matter how powerful she is, she can't live any longer. That medicine, how about we increase the dosage? Kill her in one shot and rid ourselves of a problem in the future. This mother naturally has it planned out. You don't need to worry about it. An icy light flashed through Concubine Shui's eyes. Mother, Xiao Yun declared touchingly. Concubine Shui touched her face. Yun this mother's hope is all on you now. Nothing must happen to you. Xiao Yun nodded her head, determinedly. Don't worry, mother. I will definitely try my best. Concubine Shui, the second sister, what are you guys still here doing? I heard that the Lord's father is here to go teach Huang Bei Yu a lesson. Xiao Ling's noisy voice rang. Concubine Shui and Xiao Yun looked at each other. This idiot. Elder sister, go first. I will come in a while. Xiao Yun turned around to stare at Xiao Ling. She looked at the expression on her face as though happy she was in a difficult situation. She couldn't help to sympathize with her. Then I will go now. Xiao Ling held onto the hem of her dress. She brought her maid along, hurriedly going to Liu Yun Ge. Yun let's go and look as well. Concubine Shui held onto Xiao Yun's hand, the two following them. Within Liu Yun Ge, Dong Ling had walked into the courtyard before Xiao Qi Yuan. She watched as Huang Bei Yu just changed into a pale red dress with butterflies and flowers embroidered on it. On the outside, it was covered with a sable coat. She brushed her hair into a composed crossed bun. Dong Ling walked up, smiling. Young miss is very smart. This maid had only brushed your hair a couple times before and you have learned the ways. This is harder to learn than refining pills. It's been torturing me. She lightly held onto the golden dangling ornament. Huang Bei Yu smiled. Did that old thing come yet? Does he dare not to come? Dong Ling covered her small mouth, smiling. She thought back to when she came to family Xiao and the moment Xiao Qi Yuan heard that Princess Bei Yu had ordered someone over, she wanted to laugh over the frightened expression. Huang Bei Yu raised her eyebrows. Of course, that old thing was like this. The fright that the honorable spirit had given him, he probably won't be able to forget about it his whole life. The gap in strengths was that huge, so even if he shrunk into a turtle, he won't be able to hide If he still hid his powerful strength, then maybe he could hold a rougher tone, but if he didn't, then he could only obediently let him be bullied by her. Once she thought up to here, Huang Bei Yu couldn't help to admire the honorable spirit. Most likely, from when he had made a move to Xiao Qi Yuan to when he let him escape, he had thought of this already. Who dared to provoke me? 6. Letting Xiao Qi Yuan escape alive rather than killing him, this will give family Xiao a bigger shock. Princess Bei Yu, this old man had brought some gifts over to pay a visit. Outside, an old but clear and loud voice rang. Huang Bei Yu faintly curled up the corner of her lips, saying to Dong Ling, let the Lord's father in. Yes. Dong Ling went out, standing by the door. With a crisp voice, Lord's father, please come in. Princess had prepared some snacks and tea waiting. Xiao Qi Yuan lifted his head to look around the room. The curtains were closed so nothing could be seen. How did he dare to go in? What if Huang Bei Yu had set up a trap? Then he will die inside for no reason. Although they were related by blood, all these years he hadn't viewed Huang Bei Yu as his granddaughter. Huang Bei Yu naturally hadn't viewed him as her grandfather either. Today, within the Seven Towers forest, Huang Bei Yu had the intentions of murdering him. The reasons why he came today: on one hand, He was afraid that he didn't give faces to Huang Beiyu, he will anger the master. On the other hand, he also wanted to become close to Princess Beiyu and please her so that she can compliment him in front of the master in order for him to let him go. He thought of making his move through Huang Beiyu because Huang Beiyu's personality had inherited from Princess Zhong. Since childhood, she was gentle and kind. It's just that Huang Beiyu's personality was a little on the weaker side. He thought that no matter what, blood is thicker than water. After all, Huang Beiyu would still consider this fact, right? Xiao Qi Yuan raised his head to look at Dongling. Young Miss Dongling, this old man's body isn't well. If I go into the room, it will probably taint the princess's room. It's better for me to stand outside the room and speak. The Lord's father's face is huge. Whatever you said is what you said. This maid will go in and ask for the princess out. Dongling turned around, walking in smiling. The words that she said led Xiao Qi Yuan to start sweating. His original intention was to ask for Huang Beiyu to come out, and there was nothing bad with sitting within the garden, drinking tea and chatting. But now that Dongling had exclaimed in this way, it felt as though he was taking advantage of others based on his seniority. It made it seem like he didn't want to go in and instead wanted Huang Beiyu to come out. This girl isn't an easy character. Momentarily, Huang Beiyu came out, with Dongling's escort. The lily-white hands slightly held onto the hem of the dress. On her face, it hung a faint smile. She had an elegant manner and born from the nobility. It's rare that the Lord's father could do me the honor of coming. Beiyu didn't go out to welcome you. I am really lacking in manners. Huang Beiyu bent her knees, making a salutation where a young miss would do towards a senior when seeing them. Xiao Qi Yuan didn't dare to accept her salutation. He hurriedly moved out of the way. He hugged his fist, bending his waist and saluting. What is the princess saying? It's this old man who should salute to the princess. Huang Beiyu lifted her hand. Lord's father is a senior. Quickly get up. Beiyu doesn't deserve this. Xiao Qi Yuan wiped his sweat. He stood up and the three masters in the back hurriedly came over. Bring up gifts. There was 3 embroidered boxes. Each one of the embroidered boxes was opened. The first embroidered box held the complete secret book of flame beheading. In the second embroidered box, there was a sparkling and translucent pill. In the third embroidered box, there was a black dagger which could peel metal off as though the mud. This is just a meager gift. Hope the princess can kindly accept this. Xiao Qi Yuan carefully observed Huang Beiyu's face when she saw the precious treasures. These couple of things could be considered as amazing treasures. Each of them can't be bought with money. This Huang Beiyu had only transformed into a powerful person recently. Otherwise, in the past, she wouldn't have allowed family Xiao's people to continuously bully her. Since she had turned powerful recently, she probably hasn't seen that many treasures before. When she had seen these couple of things, she will probably be delighted. Who dared to provoke me? 7. This old fox, Xiao Qi Yuan, isn't just picking up expensive gifts to gift to her for nothing. He was giving her rare items as gifts in order to move her. However, Huang Beiyu just lightly swept her eyes across the gifts. There wasn't any surprise or joy on her face. She only smiled elegantly and said, "Many thanks, Lord." Dongling, put the gifts away. Dongling went and brought the boxes into the house to put them away. Then, she brought out some tea and placed it on the stone table in the yard. Please have a seat, Lord. Huang Beiyu raised her hand and walked over to take a seat first. Xiao Qi Yuan walked over and sat down. He couldn't help but feel embarrassed as he thought to himself, it seems that her master has even rarer treasures. Otherwise, how could this little girl, Huang Beiyu, be so calm? Huang Beiyu pulled back her sleeves and personally poured a cup of tea for Xiao Qi Yuan. She raised her head as her gaze swept across the 3 experts standing behind Xiao Qi Yuan. Although these people were dressed in the attire of ordinary people, she could feel from their aura that their strength should be comparable to Xiao Qi Yuan. This old fox has really come prepared. What was he afraid of? Is he afraid that she would make a move against him and the Xiao family? He really thinks highly of himself. If she kills him in Princess Zhong's residence, She would only tarnish Princess Zhong's reputation of kindness. Why don't you all sit down for a cup of tea? Huang Beiyu smiled lightly as she set up the teacups and filled each of the teacups with tea. Those people looked at each other. The pretty female expert said, "Princess, you are too kind. Our statuses are low, how could we possibly drink tea together with the princess?" Huang Beiyu ignored her. She had already picked up a cup of tea and handed it to the female expert saying, "It's just a cup of tea." The female expert was hesitating whether she should accept it or not. If she did, she must drink it. However, if there was anything odd inside the tea. "This esteemed guest, could it be that you aren't even willing to give our princess a little face?" Dongling asked with a smile on her face. "Xiao Yu, how can you act so rude in front of the princess?" Xiao Qi Yuan frowned as he reprimanded the female expert in a serious tone. The female expert called Xiao Yu hesitated for a moment before extending her hands. "Many thanks, princess." Her hand took the teacup but she couldn't bring it back. The cup seemed to be deeply embedded in solid rock. Xiao Yu's heart was slightly moved. This Princess Beiyu's hand strength is great. Was she trying to test her in order to test the strength of the Xiao family? According to Xiao Qi Yuan, this Huang Beiyu's strength was extraordinary, and she has the backing of an expert. But their Xiao family can't just abandon their pride in front of her. Xiao Yu also secretly exerted strength into her hands. Her level has already reached that of a golden warrior. If Huang Beiyu's level is the same as hers, then she wouldn't lose too much face today. However, just as she exerted her strength, an extremely overbearing and scorching hot energy was suddenly transmitted from the teacup into her meridians. That energy seems to have a conscience of its own as it drilled into the deepest part of her internal organs. Xiao Yu was incomparably terrified. She screamed as she immediately released her hold of the teacup. The teacup fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. There wasn't even a drop of water inside, it had already evaporated. By this, one could imagine how tyrannical and fierce the scorching energy that drilled into Xiao Yu's body was. The two experts behind Xiao Qi Yuan quickly supported Xiao Yu. They both raised their heads and glared at Huang Beiyu with resentment. Was this a show of strength to warn the Xiao family? This situation had also shocked Xiao Qi Yuan. After his fit of anger, he quickly reacted. Xiao Yu is at the Gold Warrior level. If it was that easy for Huang Beiyu to make her suffer a loss, wouldn't that mean? Who dared to provoke me? 8. His heart had sunk right then. Xiao Qi Yuan immediately stood up, yelling towards Xiao Yu, "You don't have eyes, ah? The princess served tea to you and you're that careless." Quickly apologized to the princess. Xiao Yu pressed onto the arm which was in extreme pain. She knew the consequences. Xiao Qi Yuan was finding a way of the situation for her, not letting the situation become bigger. Even if she was the one who would suffer from this, she will accept this. "I have been careless. It's a good thing that I haven't injured the princess. Please punish me, princess. It's no big deal. Noble guest, you don't need to blame yourself," Huang Beiyu faintly declared. Shen then picked up another teacup, delivering it to her. "Well, noble guest, have some tea." Xiao Yu's hand was still trembling. At this time, she saw that Huang Beiyu had delivered another cup of tea over. In her heart, she was shaking. She looked towards Xiao Qi Yuan and he slightly nodded his head. Then, Xiao Yu went to pick up the tea. This time, they weren't being hard on her. She picked the tea over and drank. Xiao Yu forced a smile on. "Princess's tea is some great tea. Thanks, princess." The other two people stared at Xiao Yu's situation and didn't even wait for Huang Beiyu to personally deliver it over. They walked over, picking up the teacup, drinking it all in one sip. "Thanks, princess." The family Xiao's people all knew what's best for them. Huang Beiyu faintly smiled. At this time, outside the yard came Xiaoling's voice. "Grandfather, this girl is very bad. You better not show some mercy." She still hadn't fixed this loud and boisterous, no-brain nature. Huang Beiyu raised her head to look at Xiao Qi Yuan. The Lord's father came this time to teach someone a lesson? How could it be? This girl doesn't know her manners, letting the princess see a joke. Xiao Qi Yuan hurriedly explained. Xiao Ling's surname was Xiao, so she was still family Xiao's people. If Xiao Ling lost her face, then naturally, she would be losing him, Xiao Qi Yuan's face. There are so many people in the family Xiao. This type of useless person without talent has no value. He gave a look towards the two men and the two people immediately walked out. They blocked Xiao Ling, who was hurrying to come over. You guys, what are you guys doing? Xiao Ling exclaimed loudly, unable to differentiate between the good and bad. Before, she had heard the sound of cups smashing outside. In her heart, she thought that Huang Beiyu would be taught a harsh lesson. Therefore, she rushed over to witness this. One of the men suddenly raised his hand over and clutched Xiao Yu's throat. He coldly stated, "Princess Beiyu is here. Stop being presumptuous." Xiao Ling widened her eyes. She gurgled a couple times in her throat. She was lifted up by someone clutching onto her throat. Her hands and legs kicked and flung at each other randomly. Her face was slowly turning green. Concubine Shui and Xiao Yun, who had followed behind, came inside and saw this. They were all shocked and Xiao Yun immediately stepped back. The man lifting Xiao Yu's throat up was family Xiao's very powerful master. He was Xiao Wei. He was strong but was part of family Xiao. He would make a move towards Xiao Ling. Although she normally disliked Xiao Ling was still part of family Xiao. Because Huang Beiyu caused family Xiao to suffer, she was very unhappy. Brother Xiao Wei, even if the elder sister had made a huge mistake, she is still part of family Xiao. Please show some mercy. Xiao Wei looked at Xiao Yun. He and Xiao Yun got along pretty well. However, he couldn't listen to Xiao Yun right now. He was waiting for Huang Beiyu to say something. Huang Beiyu leisurely sipped half a cup of tea before raising her head up. It seemed as though she had just seen that Xiao Ling's throat was clutched by Xiao Wei. She shockingly exclaimed, "What did the elder sister do wrong that the noble guest is that angry?" Xiao Qi Yuan held a serious face on, his voice filled with authority. "Our family Xiao's family education is extremely strict. Although you guys don't live in the main house, you guys still need to follow the rules." Who dared to provoke me? 9. In this world, there is the way between the rule and his ministers. There is a difference between seniors and juniors. Did your father not teach you guys this before? Once he finished, he turned around to say to Huang Beiyu, "Family Xiao's family education isn't strict, letting Princess witness a joke." Where? There is nothing to say in regards to the Lord's father's personality. From the past, the mother often complimented you. I see that a couple of brothers and sisters have lost their manners outside. Most likely, it is due to the fact that the Lord's father wasn't there to instruct them. I see. How about this? The Lord's father should move to the prefecture of Princess Zhong to live. For one, this can let Beiyu fulfill her filial duties some more, and second, can instruct a couple of sisters and brothers. How does the Lord's father think about this? Once Xiao Qi Yuan heard this, cold sweat immediately appeared on his back. How is possible for him to move to the prefecture of Princess Zhong to live? Doesn't that mean living completely under Huang Beiyu's eyes? Princess's beautiful thoughts, this old man will thank you. However, this old man is now too old and is unable to look after the kids. However, this old man believes that Princess Beiyu has rather Princess Zhong's demeanor. The people that Princess Zhong had taught, after all, are different. They are composed and impressive, letting this old man admire very much. How about letting Princess look after these kids? Once Xiao Yun heard the words, her face turned pale. She hurriedly exclaimed, "Grandfather, how could you dash presumptuous?" Xiao Qi Yuan yelled, "Princess Bei, you didn't even speak yet. Is there a place for you to speak?" Xiao Yun closed her mouth, feeling like she was wronged. The tears were on the verge of falling out of the eyelids. She was angry and unwillingly bit at the bottom lips. Huang Beiyu faintly stared at Xiao Yun and them. She slowly declared, since the Lord's father had said this, Beiyu is still anxious. The sisters and brothers have bright personalities. Beiyu is still young. How am I able to look after them? Xiao Qi Yuan immediately responded, "Princess, don't hesitate to look after them. If they don't listen to you, Princess just needs to send someone to tell me. A faint smile flashed through Huang Beiyu's eyes. She looked towards Xiao Yun, smiling. Since the Lord's father had said this, then Beiyu will just follow your request. In Xiao Qi Yuan's heart, he finally let out a sigh of relief. He waved his hand to let Xiao Yun and the others leave. He glanced at the maids outside the yard who also left before he spoke to Huang Beiyu in a low voice. Princess, I had offended you today. It is unclear about that Master He. He has a strange personality. What he disliked the most is when people spout nonsense. It's because of the Lord's father had committed his greatest taboo, so you were punished. In the future, as long as you be careful, you should be fine. He doesn't easily come out anyway. Yes. Thank you, Princess Beiyu, for instructing. Xiao Qi Yuan wiped off the cold sweat off his forehead. He then whispered, not sure what that master's name is. Huang Beiyu raised her clear and bright eyes. There was some faint light. He doesn't like it when other people get to the bottom of something. Xiao Qi Yuan's heart tightened. He hurriedly explained, this old man understands. Hopefully, Princess can compliment me in front of him. In the past, this old man failed to recognize something important. From now on, I won't ever do that. Lord's father, although the two of us aren't close, after all, we are still related by blood. How could I not save you from death? Huang Beiyu grinned. Thank you, Princess. Thank you, Princess. Xiao Qi Yuan immediately stooped down, bowing with hands held in front. The worrisome and bitter face on his face finally slightly dulled. Huang Beiyu used her hand to prop against her forehead. Dong Ling immediately announced, Lord's father, Princess's body isn't too good. Today, she is probably tired. Lord's father, please understand. Oh. Who dared to provoke me? 10. Princess, rest soon. This old man will take his leave now. Xiao Qi Yuan wanted to leave a long time ago. It's just that without Huang Beiyu's words, he was hesitating. Now that he heard the words, he naturally left immediately. He just walked out from Liu Yunji when he saw Xiao Yuan Cheng, who was hurrying over. As soon as Xiao Qi Yuan saw this son who didn't try hard enough, anger in his heart was building up. If it weren't for this stupid son who didn't try hard enough back then, wanting to climb up, so he decided to marry some Princess Zhong, then he wouldn't give birth to Huang Beiyu, this evil creature. Now, this led him to unable to live in peace. Father. Xiao Yuan Cheng hurried over. That girl, did you pa? His words weren't finished when Xiao Qi Yuan raised his hand to give him a harsh slap. Stupid thing that doesn't have eyes. You don't even look at where you are living right now. You don't know to be cautious of the way you're speaking. Xiao Yuan Cheng was slapped to the point he was a little confused about what's going on. Helplessly, he turned around to look at Xiao Yu, who knew the Lord's father's thoughts well usually. Xiao Yu hugged her arm in pain, with her face pale white. Cousin, that Princess Beiyu is not to be provoked. Even we needed to look at her face in order to do something. You, this brain, how come you can't be smarter? Xiao Yuan Cheng was stunned. What? Even his father needed to look at that girl's face to do something? How is this possible? That girl is just a warrior, not even a summoner. How come his father, such a powerful figure, would be afraid of him? The moment Xiao Yu saw his face, she knew what he was thinking, coldly stating, do you know who Princess Beiyu's master is? This, I don't know either. I don't even know when did she become so powerful. Don't know. What do you know? Xiao Qi Yuan shouted, not daring to do so with a loud volume. He was afraid Huang Beiyu would hear. Xiao Yuan explained, cousin, Princess Beiyu's master is very powerful. I see that on the entire Cart mainland, only very few dared to provoke. Xiao Yuan Cheng's face changed, stuttering, that powerful? Xiao Yu stared at his expression. In her heart, she was in disdain. Since childhood, he hadn't tried hard enough. Now that he was old, he still didn't use much of his brain. Humph, in the future when he suffered, don't go begging for them. Xiao Yu humphed, I see that besides Guang Yao Dian and Xiu Luo Cheng, there isn't many who dared to provoke the masters in that rank. Cousin, You need to be careful. Our family Xiao, from now on, will never go against Princess Beiyu. If you don't do what's best, then we will separate ourselves from you. Father, what you're saying is that I need to look at that girl's face before doing something from now on? Xiao Yuan Cheng was dissatisfied in his heart. Xiao Qi Yuan peered at him coldly. Then what else do you want to do? For a while, Xiao Yuan Cheng had no idea either. Before, he had secretly arranged people to make a move towards Huang Beiyu. However, he hadn't gotten the time to do so when something happened to Xiao Zhongqi. The prefecture of Anguagong had fixed their attention on them, so the couple of masters that he wasn't able to send them out. Therefore, until now, he still didn't make a move. However, based on the situation now, he needed to make a decision. He didn't want to go through the days where he was pressured and pressed down upon in the prefecture like how he was when Princess Zhong was still alive. Father's meaning, I understand. Xiao Yuan Cheng respectfully replied, Father, go back and rest sooner. The matters of the prefecture, you don't need to worry about it. Hopefully I really don't need to worry about it. Xiao Qi Yuan didn't look at him, bringing his people and leaving. Xiao Yuan Cheng looked at Liu Yunji. He thought back to Xiao Yu's words and he didn't dare to go in himself. The master of the prefecture, in his heart, he made a plan as to how to go against Huang Beiyu. He will go the whole way. Liu Yunji, young miss, who knew that even the Lord's father was scared to that point. Dongling smiled, covering her mouth. Huang Beiyu slightly squinted her eyes. He's not scared of me. It's the person behind me. Dongling's smile slowly vanished. That master is that powerful. I don't care if he's powerful or not. It's just that with him being the support behind my back and my shield, I don't need to worry about too much when doing something. Huang Beiyu held onto the teacup, coldly lifting the corner of her lips up. Xiao Qi Yuan already said it. If I don't teach the family Xiao's people a lesson, then wouldn't I disappoint him? Dongling revealed a grin. Dongling have been waiting for this day for a long time. Huang Beiyu stood up, placing her hand in Dongling's to hold. She slowly exclaimed, Let's go. Let's go to the front hall to see father and the concubines. They walked out of Liu Yunji, and the maids who crossed the road, when seeing them, looked as though they had seen a ghost. They revealed a terrified look and all moved to one side, standing. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Before someone had seen Lord's father's attitude towards her. Even Lord's father, who is an 8-star summoner, had been respectful to her. He addressed her as Princess Beiyu. Therefore, how would the servants dare to be presumptuous? The news had traveled from one person's mouth to 10 other people. Quickly, it had spread within the prefecture of Princess Zhong. Everyone knew that the Lord's father had ordered for Princess Beiyu to look after the people of family Xiao. With the Lord's father's public support, this prefecture of Princess Zhong, from now on, Princess Beiyu would be the master. These maids all knew how to look at someone's face. They are best at being flexible and taking advantage of the situation. Based on today's situation, they didn't even care about concubine Qin and Shui anymore. Who do they count as? Even if it's the Lord, he originally was the Emperor's son-in-law who lived in the wife's house. He's not the actual master of the prefecture of Princess Zhong. Those who had bullied Huang Beiyu before were all frightened for themselves. Their hair stood up straight as though it was the end of the world. Those pairs of eyes only dared to quietly raise up to take a quick look before immediately lowering it down again. When they walked to the garden, Huang Beiyu suddenly stopped. Dongling called for a maid who was by the fake mountains, saying, Sister Beiyu, sorry to put you to trouble, but can you please deliver some words to concubine Qin, asking for her to come to the front hall to drink some tea? If it's convenient, go and call for concubine Shui and the lord over as well. The maid called Beiyu didn't even dare to raise her head to look at Dongling. She stood trembling and panicking. When she heard Dongling's words, she immediately nodded her head. Yes, yes. This maid will immediately go. This place by the fake mountains was where Huang Beiyu had killed someone with a whip. The people were originally already petrified in their hearts. Now that Huang Beiyu was personally here, it gave them a different feeling. Huang Beiyu looked towards the remains of the bloodstains on the fake mountains. Her eyebrows were scrunched. How come the blood isn't cleared? What is the point of leaving the blood? Do you guys all like to see blood? Princess, please show mercy. This servant will clean it right now. It will be done cleaning quickly. A servant kneeled down. In his hands, he held brushes, buckets, and such. Before, indeed, he held the order to clean the blood from here. Princess doesn't like to see blood, sorry to trouble you. Dong Ling smiled. Yes, yes. That servant kowtowed as though he was about to commit suicide. A part of his forehead was already red from bruising up. The master of the prefecture, too, when he raised his head, he saw that Huang Beiyu had walked away. Then, he fell on the ground on his butt. The feet and hands were trembling. Too scary, too scary. Although she looked to be around a 12-year-old girl, the clothes she wore made her look composed and stylish. She was elegant and outstanding, her temperament also calm as though she was Princess Zhong, but there were still places that were different. On Huang Beiyu's body, there is a solemn murderous spirit. In her every moment, it was revealed as though she was naturally walking out from the Azura. It's just a faint look and this led people to feel numb the whole body. This type of person, how could they think she was a useless person before? They thought she was a sick person who could be bullied however they wanted to. They really are blind. In the front hall, the moment Huang Beiyu sat down, the maids hurried to place the warm tea and snacks down. The hand in which they held the plate trembled with fear. Huang Beiyu used the back of her hand to support a side of her face. She slightly drooped her eyes down and with the other hand, she picked up the teacup. Dong Ling hurriedly raised her hand over, in a small voice. Young miss, this tea, there won't be a problem. Before, she took specialized training with different types of poisons, even neurotoxins. She was very sensitive to different types of poisons. If there was a problem with the tea, she would have detected it already. Plus, after she was punished by the punishment flame, she was basically immune to all sorts of poisons. She slowly sipped half a cup of tea when concubine Shui came over, bringing Xiao Zhongqin and Xiao Yun. Today, she was soaked in the lotus pond for half a day so concubine Qin's face was pale white. Right now, she had cleaned off her body but it was still obvious of her dejected look after being scared. She held on to Xiao Zhongqi's hand and the cold sweat dripped down her face. She was lacking in spirit so it seemed as though she was sick. Huang Beiyu lowered her eyes, blowing at the bubbles in the tea. She pretended as though she didn't see, letting concubine Qin stand there for a while in her sick manner. Xiao Zhongqi's angry face became more and more visible. Slowly, he was unable to calm down, opening his mouth. Third sister, why did you order for people to call us over for? Huang Beiyu then raised her head, smiling. As it turned out, elder brother concubine Qin are here. How come you guys didn't say anything? Quickly sit. Concubine Qin looked as though your body isn't that well. What happened? Xiao Zhongqi coldly humphed. He helped concubine Qin sit down on the chair. This Huang Beiyu knew how to act. All these years, he was fooled by her. Humph, his mother was harmed by her to this point. She was not even embarrassed to ask what happened. Huang Beiyu turned her head around to look at Xiao Zhongqi's face. She faintly smiled. Elder brother's mood doesn't seem to be that good. Xiao Zhongqi was about to reply when concubine Qin secretly pulled at the sleeves of his shirt. Concubine Qin smiled. What is the third young miss saying? It's just that my body isn't that great and Chia is just worried. Oh, Huang Beiyu purposefully dragged the letter out. She smiled with unknown intentions. Elder brother, you are very obedient. Concubine Qin's heart was pumping rapidly due to her She hurriedly inquired, what is the matter for the third young miss to call us over for? The experience today by the lotus pond, concubine Qin was unable to forget about this her whole life. She was mentally afraid of Huang Beiyu's methods plus when Xiao Zhongqi exclaimed that she had heavily injured the prefecture of the government ministers Lin Zicheng, she was even more petrified. Originally, she had gotten only a little cold. It would be all good when she goes back home to sleep and drink some warm ginger soup. However, when she was sleeping, She started to remember all the things she had done to Huang Beiyu in the past. The master of the prefecture, 3. She dreamed that she came back for revenge and also killed her, hanging her on the fake mountains. After she wakened up from the dream, the entire body collapsed. Now, as long as there is a slight movement, it was easy for her to lose her head out of fear. In the past, she was never someone who got scared easily. But this time, it was obvious that she was very terrified. Huang Beiyu stared at her frightful look and faintly smiled. Actually, there isn't really a matter. It's just that in the past, my body isn't that well, plus I am also very young, so all the things in the prefecture, I had to trouble concubine Shui and Qin to manage it. I feel very apologetic, so today, I especially found concubine Shui and Qin to come together to thank you, guys. Concubine Qin's originally pale white face, after hearing the words, turned even paler. She forced a smile on the third young miss is saying some harsh words. These are all things that the Lord had ordered. I was just doing my best. The two hands, under the sleeves, tightly entangled each other. A mouthful of blood was in her throat, and even if she wanted to vomit, she wasn't able to. This day finally came. She knew that when Huang Beiyu grew up, she would ask about family matters. But who knew that this girl who was only half grown up had already started to intervene with the matters? All these years of building an enterprise, would she need to give this away? What the Lord's father had made clear, father is worrying too much about. Huang Beiyu drank a cup of tea and raised her head up. Right then, she saw as Xiao Yuancheng and concubine Shui walking in. Xiao Yun and Xiao Zhonglei were behind too. There was also a couple of young concubines, bring their young children and those who hadn't given birth to any too. The last person who followed, coming in, was Xiao Ling's mother, concubine Fang. This concubine Fang wore simple clothes and on an average year, she was a vegetarian. She stood aloof from worldly affairs and normally didn't come out either. At the Chinese New Year or other festivities, she just occasionally came out to make an appearance then went back. It was heard that her body wasn't that well and her personality was quite gentle and quiet. It was unclear how she gave birth to Xiao Ling, that type of daughter. One time, Huang Beiyu was bullied and she hid by concubine Fang's Kui Zhu Yuan. Concubine Fang had given her some foods to eat and even protected her a couple times. Remembering this kindness, when she handled Xiao Ling, she would also be less strict on her. The moment Xiao Yuancheng walked into the door, he saw that Huang Beiyu sat on the master's seat. His face was a little unhappy. Huang Beiyu opened her mouth first. Father is here. Quickly come sit. All the concubines, please take a seat too. Brothers and sisters, take a seat too. Concubine Shui stared at concubine Qin. She watched her expression and in her heart, she was pondering. Could it be that Huang Beiyu was starting to intervene with the family matters? Everyone all got into their seats. The maids brought the tea up, then Huang Beiyu slowly exclaimed, "Before, I had said this to concubine Qin. These couple of years, father and the concubines have been hard at work, managing the family matters. Now that father is turning old and has a group of daughters and sons, it is time for you to live in ease and comfort with the concubines." Her words were not finished when Xiao Yuancheng was restless. "Beiyu, you're still young and you want to monopolize the authority?" Huang Beiyu dropped the teacup down and blinked her eyes. She looked to be innocent and naive, not mad at all. She grinned, inquiring, "What does father mean by this statement?" Xiao Yuancheng retorted, "All the matters in the prefecture, all the years, it's always been you and the concubines managing after it. Even if the power should be let go, you should follow the order of the seniority and let your brothers and sisters take over." Follow the order of the seniority? Huang Beiyu's gaze landed on the young masters and young misses in the hall and swept her gaze through each one, smiling. "Should I dare to ask the father that of the brothers and sisters, who else is born from the same mother as I am? Who is the first daughter of the first lady within the prefecture?" The master of the prefecture, 4. Anger appeared on the faces of Xiao Zhongqi, Xiao Yun, and the others. Xiao Yuancheng's face turned ugly as he said angrily, "Our residence only has the distinction of between the seniors and juniors. How can there be any difference between Di and Shu? 1. Birth. A cold light flashed in Huang Beiyu's eyes, but she wasn't angered at all. She only used her finger to slowly stroke the golden cup. This momentary silence caused Xiao Yuan Cheng, who was filled with anger, to feel increasingly uncertain in his heart as he waited for Huang Beiyu to refute him. What does she mean by not speaking? Does it mean that she agrees with him or what? This girl is truly lacking in manners the more she grows up. Playing with psychological tactics, she is an expert on it. She was silent for a while. Who in the hall wasn't nervous like Xiao Yuan Cheng as they waited for her to speak? However, the more they waited, the more they could see her increasingly cold and calm expression. Her pink lips were slightly pursed and her expression was languid. It was unknown whether she was angry or was scheming something bad. Just when everyone was silent, concubine Xue suddenly said, "What do you mean, third miss? Say something." Her voice was not loud, and just as she spoke, Huang Beiyu's fingers moved. The glazed gold teacup suddenly fell from the table, shattering into pieces as it hit the floor. This action gave everyone a fright. Huang Beiyu suddenly stood up. The calm expression on her face disappeared in an instant. Her expression became a bit severe as she extended her slender finger towards concubine Xue and said, "Dongling, slap her." "Yes," Dongling answered and walked over in large strides. Before Xiao Yun, who was standing next to concubine Xue, could react, Dongling had already slapped concubine Xue fiercely in the face. It was even more ruthless than the last time when concubine Xue hit her. One slap to the face already made blood trickle from the corner of concubine Xue's mouth. She was stupefied. "Damned girl. Are tired of living?" Xiao Yun immediately reacted and raised her hand. Essence Qi had already gathered in the palm of her hand. If this palm strikes Dongling, Dongling would definitely lose her life. "Are you rebelling?" Huang Beiyu simply swept the teapot and the flower pots to the ground, shattering it into pieces. A sharp light flashed past her eyes. Xiao Yun's heart jumped as she immediately retracted her raised hand. But after she thought about how she was so useless to just retract her hand, she asked, "Huang Beiyu, what do you mean by that? What mistake did my mother commit that you actually ordered a servant girl to hit her?" Instead of getting angry, Huang Beiyu laughed. "All right, I see that this residence really doesn't put a distinction in status. Father's indulgence is great. Which concubine in the capital would dare to yell at the Di daughter? Not to mention that concubine Xue is still just a concubine right now. Even if you help her become the legal wife, this is Princess Zhong's residence. This residence hasn't become the Xiao residence. I, Huang Beiyu, am still alive. Or could it be that you all wish to overturn the heaven?" Xiao Yun glared at her and said, "Even if you are a noble princess, your father is still here. If you knew anything about filial piety, would you still be so rude to your father?" Good. She wants to push her down with the feelings of a father and daughter. What is filial piety? Don't be ridiculous. Is Xiao Yuan Cheng even worthy of it? Second sister still remembers that I'm a princess. Do you remember what my surname is? From ancient times until now, it was first the ruler and his subjects. Then it was father and son. Don't you know anything about the 3 principles and 5 virtues, too? Xiao Yun was stunned. She braced herself and said, "This is at home, not the court." Second sister's meaning is, at home, you can have no respect for the monarch. You can disregard the emperor and his subjects. Do you know how heavy this crime is if this is spread around? Second sister, the one who doesn't understand filial piety is you. Do you want to implicate father and kill him? 1. Di and Shu, in Imperial China, officials would have one main wife and multiple concubines. Sons and daughters born from the main wife are called Di, which means that they are the legitimate sons and daughters of that official. While sons and daughters born from a concubine are called Shu, they have significantly less right power than those who are born from the main wife. 2. 3 principles and 5 virtues. The 3 rules: ruler guides subject, father guides son and husband guides wife, and 5 constant virtues of Confucianism: benevolence, righteousness, propriety, wisdom and fidelity. The master of the prefecture, 5, Concubine Shui hurriedly pulled Xiao Yun. This big of a crime, if it was pointed at their heads, they wouldn't be able to endure the consequences. What they suffered today, they could only hold it in. Third young miss, don't be mad. It is me who was too reckless, saying inappropriate words. The third young miss said the right thing. I should slap myself. Half the side of Concubine Shui's face was still swollen. She looked towards Xiao Yuan Cheng, her eyes filled with grievances. The eyelids were slightly red and swollen. Huang Beiyu smiled. Since the concubine admits that she is wrong, it's not good if I punish too harshly. Just slap yourself 3 times and it will be fine. Dong Ling had already slapped once, so the other 2, Xia and I will do so. On the surface, she was purposefully letting her go as she is making Xia and I slap her. She definitely won't slap too harshly. But letting a maid slap her own master, that would be a deep insult. Concubine Shui bit on the bottom of her lips, and that Xia and I immediately kneeled on the ground. This maid doesn't dare to. Useless thing. What is the point for the prefecture to take care of you then? You won't even listen to the master's word. Huang Beiyu's face turned cold. Pull her off and hit her 10 times with the plank. The servants who stood outside looked at each other. They knew that today wasn't like the past anymore. This Princess Beiyu, within the prefecture today, was setting up her prestige. Now that she also had the support of the Lord's father, who dared to go against her orders, they immediately went in to pull Xia and I out to beat her. From the yard, there came the sound of tragic screaming. The maids in the front hall all held pale white faces. They knew that Princess Beiyu was a figure who would not change her decisions at all. Huang Beiyu faintly glanced at Concubine Shui. Xia-chun, you come. Yes. With Xia and I, this lesson learned from the previous mistake, Xiao-chun didn't dare to hesitate at all. She walked up, exclaiming to Concubine Shui, Concubine, this maid is receiving the orders to do so. Please don't blame it on me. As she finished, she slapped the 2 sides of her faces with 2 hands. The 2 slaps fell on her face, not being vague at all. Xiao Yun tightly held onto her fist. Concubine Shui clenched her teeth. After she was slapped, she tugged at her swelled face, standing up to salute to Huang Beiyu. Thanks third young miss for showing some mercy. As long as the concubine remembers her lesson. Huang Beiyu faintly announced, not looking at her anymore. She looked towards Xiao Yuan Cheng. On the other hand, Father, Beiyu is still young and doesn't know her manners. There are some things that aren't resolved in the best way they can be. I will be troubling you to remind me sometimes. Remind her? Xiao Yuan Cheng snorted. What happened before? Was there room for him to remind her? This girl has a fluent mouth, and even the black could be said as white. Not only that, there was no space for them to even go against it. The poison of the mouth, Xiao Yuan Cheng had seen this for the first time in his whole life. His woman, his daughter, and son had all been wronged, yet there was nothing he could do about it. He could only glare at her. Don't mention how unhappy he was in his heart. Humph, your matter, you look to see how to resolve it. However, the concubines are still your seniors. You are the junior. You should know the appropriate behaviors and not let outsiders say that there is no order within the prefecture of Princess Zhong. Yes, Beiyu will definitely take this to heart. Huang Beiyu nodded her head modestly. Then she changed the subject all of a sudden. The matter that Beiyu had brought up, how did the father think about it? Xiao Yuan Cheng humphed loudly from his nose. This matter, let's talk about it when you're older. Right now, it's not the best time. Huang Beiyu slowly sat down, playing with the tassels on the hem of her dress. Father is scared that I won't be able to manage after the prefecture of Princess Zhong. You're still young, so naturally there will be places where you didn't consider about. Father's worry isn't without reason. I am young and don't have experiences, but in the future, one day, the prefecture of Princess Zhong will be managed by me. Therefore, some things, what I need to know, I should know about it earlier. I see that today, we should let housekeeper Ju bring the account book over so I can first view it and then slowly learn about it in the future. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference. as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.